the everyday Hogwarts player. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 351, Wizard Spell. Time: 12:10 a.m. in the girls' bathroom on the third floor. Two figures who were obviously men were wandering outside. Dumbledore, are we really going in? Riddle asked hesitantly. If it were the old him, he might not care about these details, but now, he would probably have to live in this identity for an almost indefinite amount of time if he was caught going into the ladies' room. After all, Myrtle was in there the whole time he was paying attention to the girl whom he had accidentally killed. At this time, she should be sitting on the water tank of the innermost flush toilet as usual. I mean, the guy who came in here is very likely the same wizard who appeared in Rotherham Church, and judging from what you showed just now, you should be the only one among us who has a sense of the magic that seems to stop time. Riddle began to make excuses. But this was hardly an excuse, as he immediately thought of their oversight after he stopped wanting to go in. He and Dumbledore had been invincible for so long that when faced with danger, they usually chose to rush forward instead of planning before taking action. When did you get the illusion that I wanted to go in right away? Dumbledore rubbed his eyes. If I wanted to get in quickly, why would I spend so much time outside with you? Inheriting the name of a wizard who is called a god, is difficult, even impossible. Of the name, the only ones who can be used as vessels by fallen gods are muggles. However, muggles cannot sense the power of gods through their names. Conversely, the power of gods cannot descend upon them. And now, in the secret room in this bathroom, there is a wizard who has inherited the name of Kronos and the power of the god of time. Dumbledore whispered, his face full of surprise. I think I know this better than you. The name Voldemort represents my power. It is the conjecture and knowledge of Slytherin about higher realms that I found in the Chamber of Secrets. To put it in terms of the Muggle knowledge I recently learned, it means compressing all the information about wizards and giving them an invisible name. Does it sound familiar? It's similar to the process of creating a spell. This name is like a magic spell, circulating among wizards and in the magical magnetic field. It's another exploration of the realm of the undead, wizard spellcasting. But I didn't do that. This name only allows me to sense the location and even the emotions of the wizard who called it. Perhaps this has something to do with the incompleteness of my soul. No, it's Voldemort who thinks this is the deterioration of wizard blood. Dumbledore couldn't help but complain. Yes, but that's obviously wrong, as we've discussed before. Perhaps it was the gods, the curse of those forerunners, who feared that more powerful wizards would be born in the future. But some gods and wizards disagreed with the outbreak of the war. The gods have all become dead. Only those myths and the power contained in their names can prove their existence. Riddle guessed. Maybe, but Tom, maybe you shouldn't have cast that soundproof spell just now. That wizard really exists. He should have shown up long ago to help us solve our puzzles. I don't think it's because of your spell that Tom didn't notice us. Dumbledore said with a smile, and waved his wand, canceling the soundproofing magic. At least he's not a guy like Voldemort. I don't others mind knowing my existence. He didn't show up. Maybe he was just busy with something else, the basilisk, or he just didn't want to pay attention to us. You've been staying here for a long time, so you must have something else to say. Riddle noticed something. Dumbledore must have had something else to say, otherwise he would risk being discovered by Professor McGonagall, who is up for the night, by lingering in the girls' bathroom just to say these words. If you really want to attract that person to appear, it would be the same in the bathroom. The ghosts in Hogwarts are very obedient to the headmaster, so just leave her for a while. Are you crazy? A blush appeared on Riddle's pale cheeks. Thank you for the letter, Dumbledore continued after Fudge stepped down and Arthur, who had been left idle, was taken seriously again. He realized how wrong he had been before. Oh, you finally understand the benefits of power. Riddle's face was still slightly flushed, and no one knew what he was thinking just now. He just knew that maybe everything was starting to get better. No, I just found that power should be in the hands of those who deserve it. As for why I thank you, you probably know the rest, so I'll just talk about Fudge. Did you know that Fudge has a nephew called Rufus Fudge? Letter. I won't repeat the contents of the letter, but there is one paragraph I remember very clearly. It was the advice he gave to Rufus as an elder, how to be a good official in the Ministry of Magic. Phase 1, Claim nothing happened. In the second phase, maybe something is happening, but you shouldn't act on it now. In the third stage, maybe we should take action, but nothing can be done now. In the fourth stage, I should have done something, but it's too late now. I'm sorry, late now. Dumbledore's tone was filled with anger. Chapter 352 in the girls' bathroom. Is this really the guy Dumbledore likes? Is this Fudge? From a certain perspective, this guy Fudge is quite remarkable. In the eyes of the wizarding world, Fudge was just Dumbledore's yes man. In Dumbledore's eyes, he was a qualified minister who was honest and obedient, but a little greedy for money wouldn't have been able to find his biggest weakness. This is the best way to shirk responsibility. All you have to do is act like you're busy and that you're paying attention. Even Riddle couldn't help but start complaining. Yes, so you have to work harder. When the day comes when you don't want to stay in Hogwarts anymore, maybe I will be dead by then, you can try to become the Minister of Magic and prevent the train of the British wizarding world from deviating from the right track. Dumbledore smiled slyly. So you haven't given up the idea of dying of old age? Riddle couldn't suppress his anger, causing his voice to be a little loud at the end of his words. He also forgot that the magic that was used to block the sound from leaking out had already been stopped by Dumbledore. Tom, don't think I don't know your purpose. Dumbledore wanted to continue. However, a voice interrupted their conversation. Who are you? A scream accompanied by the sound of water gushing out was heard. It was Myrtle. A man's voice. My body and heart belong to Harry Potter. Why, do you want to laugh at my foolish dreams again? A toad wanting to eat swan flesh? Only I know that Harry cares about me. He even stopped the red-haired guy and the little vampire next to him from reporting me to the Ministry of Magic. Harry, oh, Harry. Myrtle noticed someone behind her and started talking nonsense. Harry, Dumbledore and Riddle said almost simultaneously. After a brief eye contact, Riddle bent slightly and stepped aside, moving Dumbledore to open the door. Professor Dumbledore. Myrtle jumped back into the tank, splashing water everywhere. After pushing open the door, the bathroom was dimly lit because the gushing water extinguished the candles and made the walls and floor wet. Riddle made a disgusted look on his face. He pulled out his wand and waved it. The candles lit up again and the ground became dry again. In the water tank, Myrtle was obviously also infected by this attitude. In addition, she was Dumbledore's student when she died now. Dumbledore smiled as if to expect it. Professor, do you know Tom Riddle? He's a handsome boy from Slytherin and looks a lot like you. Myrtle blinked shyly. He's my dad, Riddle lied. It was normal in the wizarding world for a father and son to have the same name. Because they usually have a middle name in the middle of their names, the difference between seemingly identical names lies in it. It's so obvious. I don't know why no one has noticed it before. This is the only faucet that never produces water, and it's the only one with a snake tattooed on its side. Riddle couldn't help rolling his eyes. In front of Dumbledore, he looked more and more like a normal little wizard. Suddenly, a strange hissing sound came from his mouth. Open. Suddenly, the faucet emitted a dazzling white light and began to spin rapidly. Then the pool began to move. They watched as it slowly disappeared from sight, revealing a large pipe that was big enough for a person to fit into. Crawled in? Could Slytherin be an animagus, a snake? Dumbledore said after bending down to check. I suppose, well, maybe. I suggest you don't be too surprised and come with me. Before Dumbledore had time to think about why he was surprised, he jumped down with Riddle. No, sliding down is more appropriate. He also understood why he should be surprised. The thing is that this slide is gross really. It's covered in a sticky liquid. What's even more disgusting is that with his own level of magic, a little darkness can't block his vision. Many thinner tubes branching out in all addresses had slid for several miles and had they fell very deep under the school grounds, probably to the bottom of the lake. After an unknown amount of time, he began to feel the water pipe becoming horizontal. He emerged from the pipe and fell to the wet ground with a plop. Looked at the ground with disgust. The ground was also very wet and littered with small animal bones. Maybe it has something to do with Slytherin's origin. As we all know, Slytherin comes from a damp swamp. And these environments that most people hate might make people feel like home, Dumbledore guessed. At the same time, Dumbledore's light blue eyes began to glow faintly, as if he was looking for any trace of a third person. Have you ever thought that this place is so disgusting? Maybe that person flew in here. Also, why didn't you fly down just now? Did you want to feel the touch of the glide path? Riddle complained. Fly? Maybe. I think it's better to be cautious in Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets and conserve more magic power. Dumbledore sighed. I have found no trace of any third person. Wait, what is that? Chapter 353, The Ordinary-Looking Slytherin Descendant. One of the most fascinating things about Hogwarts Castle is the many secrets it holds. Even Dumbledore himself could not know all these secrets. However, there is only one secret that Dumbledore can guarantee, and among the living wizards, only he and Tom, Diary Tom, know it. That is the vast underground world. And now, here, in Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets, he saw the skeleton of a Scottish ox type of cattle known for having the longest hair in the animal kingdom. They live in the cold and bleak Scottish Highlands. They are an ancient breed with a strong body that can digest plants that many other cattle avoid, and their long hair helps them withstand the test of severe cold and heavy rain. Scotland is home to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry and the magical village of Hogsmeade. The remote location and mountainous terrain make Scotland a great place to hide magical places that are not meant to be seen by muggles. The exact location of Hogwarts is unknown to the rest of the wizarding world. But Dumbledore, as the headmaster, knew that it was located in the northwest Highlands of Scotland, Sutherland County, because it was sparsely populated. Logically, Dumbledore should not have been surprised to see the skeleton of a local native cattle in the Chamber of Secrets. However, Dumbledore knew one thing: the basilisk had never left Hogwarts, let alone the Forbidden Forest. Otherwise, it would have been discovered long ago, and the eight-eyed giant spiders in the Forbidden Forest would have been unable to resist and migrated long ago. Therefore, even though Dumbledore was reluctant to admit it, the owner of this skeleton came from the underground world that only the headmaster knew. And the basilisk is also among them, Guy. So, the basilisk is also in that mysterious place. Riddle was confused at first, but when he saw the skeleton, he understood it instantly. What I am worried about now is whether the wizard came here for the basilisk or the underground world. Dumbledore raised his eyes. Don't think too much. Maybe that person just came to see the secret chamber. Maybe the basilisk is fine. Dumbledore quickly adjusted his mood and looked at the huge snakeskin. It lay coiled on the floor of the tunnel, bright green and empty inside. Well, Christmas is coming soon. Riddle suddenly stopped. You want it? Dumbledore looked at the snakeskin again. As a colleague and his former leader, I thought I should prepare a valuable Christmas gift for Severus, a 1,000-year-old basilisk skin. Riddle stuffed the snakeskin into his pocket. I think it's better for you not to give him anything and just treat him as heir. Severus will feel more comfortable then. It was a solid wall with two snakes entwined with each other carved on it. Dumbledore said nothing forward and hissed, deeply, hoarsely, open it. The two snakes separated, and the stone wall cracked in the middle, slowly sliding to both sides and disappearing, and the two men walked in black shadows on the room, which was filled with a green, mysterious haze. The setting is perfect for a haunted house, the kind used in the Muggle world to scare people. Even though Dumbledore and the others took small steps and used very little strength, each step still produced a hollow, loud echo between the ghostly walls. When they were parallel to the last pair of pillars, a statue as tall as the room itself suddenly appeared before them, clinging to the dark wall behind. Riddle couldn't help but cover his forehead. He already knew what would appear in front of them. Dumbledore looked up with curiosity. He understood that the only person who could have a statue left in this place was the mysterious great wizard who never left any portrait, Slytherin, one of the four giants of Hogwarts. Dumbledore lost his temper. His pupils couldn't help but shrink, all because of this statue. It was an old, monkey-like face, with a long sparse beard that almost reached the hem of the wizard's robe carved out of stone, and two large gray feet standing on the smooth floor of the room. This is Slytherin. Dumbledore couldn't help rubbing his eyes. Yeah, that's Slytherin. It's understandable, actually. In the history of magic, all the descendants of Slytherin who left portraits, Gormlaithgaunt, Isoltsere, and even my mother as mentioned by the orphanage, were not famous for their looks. They all looked ordinary. From my Muggle father. This is my mother's blessing. What about the basilisk? There are no signs of it sliding around here. I guess this room isn't where the basilisk usually stays. It's probably in the space behind this statue. That space may be connected to the underground world through some pipes. Dumbledore saw Riddle losing his composure and began to mention the real purpose of their coming here in order to amuse Riddle's attention. You guessed right, but you can also summon the basilisk in this room. Maybe this is Slytherin's sense of ritual. Riddle smiled strangely. He is indeed not a pure Slytherin heir, at least not in terms of aesthetics. Chapter 354 The Vanishing Basilisk. Riddle opened his mouth and hissed, "Speak to me, Slytherin, the greatest of the Hogwarts Four." Crack, crack, the ground shook. It was the statue. Dumbledore looked up at the statue, and the huge stone face of Slytherin began to move. The statue's mouth was opened very wide, almost forming an O shape, which was an expression that ordinary people could not make. Combined with the monkey face and long beard, it looked particularly funny. Dumbledore also understood why Riddle had such a strange smile. It seems that the basilisk has disappeared. Riddle sighed. If the basilisk was still there, there should now be the rustling sound of the basilisk crawling coming from deep within the statue. Appearance of his ancestors could smooth his frown, isn't this what we have guessed a long time ago? By the way, Tom, how did you find this password? Dumbledore said with a smile. He waved his wand, and a recliner appeared behind him, and he lay down on it. Excellent transfiguration, without any worldly touch? Riddle first exclaimed in admiration at, but Slytherin is still alive, at least when I arrived. I was almost 17 years old at that time, and I came to the secret chamber that no one had discovered for 1,000 years with great pride. But when I got here, I just thought about Slytherin in my heart, and Slytherin spoke to me. Slytherin's name contains part of his life, as well as the wizard's magical manuscript. After I entered the magic, he disappeared. I also learned from Slytherin the password to release the basilisk. Before that, the basilisk could leave as usual, but it could only pass through those magical pipes and could not actually enter Hogwarts, nor could it enter this room. Riddle's eyes were filled with memories. Those so-called channel-enhanced magics should be used to deal with ghosts. This room also contains that kind of magic. I can sense it. Chamber would have been discovered long ago, by asking ghosts to find it. Dumbledore took a sip of the wine that appeared from the air. Of course. Slytherin has gone further than me in terms of wizard magic. He can hide lives and objects and names and even sense my thoughts. But mine can only sense when someone actually calls out my name. It can absorb other people's fear of me, which only increases the power of the spell a little bit. Perhaps my inability to complete this magic is really related to my incomplete soul. After all, my information is incomplete. How can I upload it? Riddle sighed and took the glass of wine floating next to him that Dumbledore brought to him. What a powerful magic. Like Ravenclaw's ghost transformation, Slytherin also has its own unique magic. Dumbledore couldn't help but admire. But you didn't seem to mention before that the magic can also enhance the power of your spells, said Dumbledore. Why is it butterbeer? I'm not a brat. Seeing that Dumbledore didn't respond, he continued, of course the increase was too small. I could hardly feel it. For a while I even thought it was an illusion. By the way, do you want to see that spell? I can repeat it to you. Riddle said in a casual tone. Forget it. Ravenclaw's magic alone almost makes me want to transform myself to prolong my life, not to mention, Tom, don't think I don't understand what you really mean. Dumbledore rolled his eyes. You will change sooner or later, just as you dare to accept power now. Potter can't replace you. Riddle didn't say much. He stood up and the sofa behind him turned into air again. Dumbledore did the same. He waved his wand and the two began to float, drifting towards the O-shaped mouth of the Slytherin statue. Warm fluorescence. This place seems to be no different from the previous place. Dumbledore looked around carefully. There is no possible passage here that connects to the underground world. Riddle stretched out his hand, touched the pipe, and said while singing a difficult song. Most importantly, no trace of the wizard was left. That shouldn't be the case. We've clearly seen magic here. Dumbledore frowned. The area is cleaned after use. The traces of the magic cannot be erased because the magic magnetic field will record everything. This is also why those gods who are deliberately forgotten and whose stories are not passed down, are still alive. Everything about them is engraved in their names, and their names are also engraved in the magical magnetic field like a spell. This wizard may be closer to God than we are. That is the first generation of wizards. Riddle said excitedly, although he had already noticed and anticipated the power of this wizard, but it wasn't until now that he confirmed it. This means that in the future, when there is no end in sight, there is still room for improvement. His perceived lack of progress in study and training might just be an illusion. Maybe the progress was just too small for him to notice a handsome young man who seemed to have walked out of a painting. He had black hair and eyes as bright as the moon. Behind him, A snake that was extremely small compared to the giant snake was rubbing its head against the boy from time to time. "Stop it, Nagini. You might as well transform into human form." "Well, unfortunately, the time you can transform into human form today has run out." "Death curse," using the eyes, the young man muttered to himself. A spider crawling in the flowers suddenly flew up, and the boy looked at it. "Look at my shocking disaster." The spider twitched and then remained motionless. Obviously, this boy is Ryan. Chapter 355, The Blood Curse is Lifted. The basilisk is a giant venomous snake, also known as the King of Serpents. It is a creature created by dark wizards. The vile Herpo was the first person to breed a basilisk. He placed an egg under the body of a toad and hatched a creature known as the basilisk. Male basilisks inherit some of the characteristics of the eggs from which they are derived, and have a feather on the top of their heads. Basilisks can grow up to 50 feet long and have dark green skin and yellow eyes. Its skin is covered in scales that can deflect spells. Its venom is a highly toxic substance that can kill a person within minutes and cause drowsiness, blurred vision, and hallucinations before death. The effects of this venom are long-lasting, and even 5 years after the basilisk has been dead, its original venom can still be used to damage inanimate objects beyond repair. As such, it is one of the few substances powerful enough to destroy a Horcrux. However, the most terrifying thing is probably its gaze, which can instantly kill any person or animal whose eyes come into contact with it. This gaze, which can directly deprive a living being of its life, is also the main reason why spiders fear basilisks. Spiders have 360-degree vision and cannot close their eyes, making it easy for them to make eye contact with a basilisk. First basilisk, he discovered that the phoenix was its natural enemy, and the phoenix's tears were the only antidote to the basilisk's venom. The basilisk's killer move, the life-stealing gaze, is useless against the phoenix animation, allowing it to live longer and not be limited by its natural lifespan. 900 years after Herpo, the power of the basilisk also made other dark wizards envious and white wizards fearful. It is not known which black wizard or white wizard discovered the basilisk's most obvious weakness after a long time. The crowing of a rooster was fatal to it. Its deadly gaze can also be weakened, and when a victim's eyes meet the basilisk's indirectly, such as through reflection, they are merely petrified. And with enough reflections, the threat can be reduced to almost nothing. However, wearing glasses will not save your life when making eye contact with a basilisk, because glasses still allow gaze to pass directly through instead of reflecting it like mirrors and cameras. Since the weaknesses of the basilisk were discovered one by one, cultivating a basilisk became a fashion at that time, and it could also be used to guard one's wealth, considered illegal. But this practice is easy to conceal, as people only need to remove the eggs from under the toad before the arrival of the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures hatch the eggs with a poisonous snake. Thus the cockatrice was born, and as soon as it was born it took the life of its creator. As a result, the wizards still don't know who the unlucky guy is until now. Unlike the basilisk, the cockatrice has no apparent weaknesses, but has feathers and scales that can make a deadly cry and deflect spells. The birth of this dangerous creature also prompted the Ministry of Magic to crack down on the breeding of basilisks. Therefore, there has been no record of sightings of the basilisk in Britain for at least 400 years. This is why Orion must go to the Chamber of Secrets to find the basilisk. The methods of breeding basilisks had long been destroyed one by one, including Smith. A moment of carelessness. Although Orion can directly create a basilisk ritual through thinking, or directly find the possible remaining basilisk eggs, but Nagini couldn't wait. The blood curse on her body has reached a critical stage. She needs a snake that is more powerful than her own snake body to serve as the sustenance of her animal nature and carry the blessing of the Dark Mother Earth. Now is the time. Ryan pointed his wand to the sky. That is Sirius, which appears in the southern winter sky, located at the lower left of Orion. It is the brightest star in the winter night sky and a first-magnitude star in the constellation Canis Major giant halo. This magic cage surrounded Nagini, and she kept spinning and twisting inside. An obscure, strange, low, and sacred voice began to sound from Ryan's mouth, and the magic cage began to float towards the basilisk coiled by the pool. The earth began to shake, and the surrounding light disappeared abruptly. A strange darkness suddenly emerged from the basilisk. The sound, light, and wind all disappeared, leaving behind only long spells in an unknown language. I don't know how long it took, but as the last syllable of Ryan's spell fell, a high-pitched snake cry sounded from the night sky. The long snake body hovered in the air, and its bright green scales began to be filled with blue starlight. Its bright yellow eyes also turned as blue as the sky. A naked, graceful female body was lying on its side on top of this drastically transformed, gravity-defying basilisk. It's amazing. Ryan disappeared on the spot, and the next moment he appeared in front of the woman who should be Nagini. Ryan waved his hand, and the starlight turned into silk threads, which flew towards Nagini's white and exquisite body. A dress of the same color as the basilisk scales appeared on Nagini's naked body. Master. A charming and pure voice, full of innocence and knowledge of the world, came from Nagini's mouth, who had just opened her eyes. Although she had clearly regained her human form, she was still twisting like a snake. Her little face used the force from Ryan's legs to move upwards, and finally appeared on Ryan's profile. She would rub Ryan's cheek from time to time, acting like a spoiled child. Nagini, do you remember who you are? Ryan stood straight, with a tall girl wrapped around him, who didn't seem to be a problem for him at all. Nagini is Nagini, the master's Nagini. But it's very strange now. Nagini can fly. Nagini has two bodies. Nagini looked at the snake body under her puzzledly, and the snake body also looked at Nagini with her beautiful sky blue snake eyes. Chapter 356 Serious. Physiological Communication LV3, 55%. Physiological Communication LV4, 75%. Physiological Communication LV5, 78%. Early morning in the Ravenclaw dormitory. Ryan, what's wrong with you today? Harry looked at Ryan curiously. You know, if he follows a normal schedule, he should be the first one to get up. Nothing. Ryan supported his waist. Only he himself knew that this was related to the rapid improvement of a skill that could not be described in detail. After all, snakes mate for a long time, and some can even take a whole day. Not to mention Nagini, who possesses the power of the Snake King. Is it related to the astronomical phenomenon last night? I saw Sirius when I went to the bathroom last night. It was very strange at that time. How should I put it? I couldn't sleep after seeing it. Terry, who was good at astronomy, suddenly said weakly. Sirius? Maybe there really is something strange about it. As you all know, my ancestors came from Africa. In our tribe, we believe that it is the sun behind the sun and the real source of our solar power. If the warmth of our sunlight keeps the material world alive, Sirius keeps the spiritual world alive. It is the source of mysterious power. The dark-skinned Michael raised his right hand and told a story he heard from his grandmother. Yes, the name Sirius comes from ancient Greek, meaning luminous or burning astronomy, mythology and magic. In Egyptian magic, it is known as the star of the chieftain, the rain god or the rain star. Wizards go there to conduct research. It is said that this is a mysterious magic ritual that relies on the pyramid to absorb the light from the stars. And in ancient Greece, wizards at that time called it the dog days of summer. Just as Terry suddenly became energetic and said a long paragraph, Ron interrupted him when he was about to continue. Well, today is Sunday. The things you mentioned won't be tested in our astronomy class. They're all extracurricular content. Ron waved his hand impatiently. Hey, are you a Ravenclaw? Anthony stuck his head out of the bed and looked at Ron. Look, Harry has taken out his quill and is taking notes. Anthony pointed at Harry, who was writing furiously. Merlin's shoes. Harry. Ron put his hands on his hips, looking oddly like Mrs. Weasley may not know much about it. For example, in the Black family, at least in the family tree, there are 3 people named Sirius. Harry put down the quill. What's so strange about this? Those wizarding families who are more particular will name their children after stars. For example, Draco is named after Draco. And more advanced wizard families like ours would not choose ridiculous such names. If you really want to know, you can write to Sirius. He will definitely know more. Ron shrugged. Ryan rubbed his waist and disappeared into their quarrel. It's really not that easy to be Sue. I've already prepared for this. After Mr. Weasley got promoted, I have renovated the burrow. Even Percy, who hadn't gone home for the holidays for years, went back. It's okay for you to go back. Harry waved his hand, pretending to be indifferent. I really don't understand why Sirius is suddenly so busy that he forces you to stay at Hogwarts for Christmas. Ron dug into the steak on the golden plate and took a big bite. It is probably related to Voldemort. He probably did this to ensure that the previous report was seen by Voldemort, but without causing Voldemort to suspect anything. This is very important for the safety of Draco and his family. Harry said gloomily. Even his favorite potato pancakes couldn't make him smile. Maybe Voldemort has seen it a long time ago, hasn't he? How can we be sure he has seen it? Ron muttered disapprovingly. From Azkaban, we already know that Voldemort's next target is Dumbledore in Azkaban. But Draco is all right now. I suspect that perhaps the construction of the new prison has made Voldemort a little alert. Harry sighed helplessly. In my opinion, there shouldn't be any new prison. Those who go to Azkaban are more or less not good people. Ron waved the fork in his hand. Where's Sirius? He was just wrongly accused. Some are completely innocent but are sent to prison for ridiculous reasons. Acceptance, his father only performed a very small magic at home, and no one discovered it. And what happened? Said Harry angrily. His temper was much worse due to the anger at having to spend Christmas alone at Hogwarts. Not to mention that because of the inspiration from the Gryffindor team's performance last time, as the captain of the Ravenclaw Quidditch team, he took the lead and increased the amount of training. With all these factors combined, Harry inevitably became much more irritable. As a result, Michael's father had to be fined, but because his father had long since left the wizarding world, there weren't enough galleons. He was finally sentenced to 3 years in prison. If Michael hadn't been suddenly registered and identified as a wizard, his father would have gone crazy when he was released. That's the environment in Azkaban. Seeing Harry, who was obviously abnormal, Ron shrank his neck and continued. Yet, can't Dumbledore handle these things himself? Look at Mr. Weasley. There are so many unreasonable laws in the wizarding world, and he has time to spend Christmas with his family while changing them one by one. And what about Sirius? I don't even have time for Christmas. Not as reliable as Sirius. Harry clenched his fists. Is there a possibility that Dumbledore actually helped to deal with these things? Ron said cautiously. He clenched his fists tighter and looked at Ron. Chapter 357, Ron's Tragic Childhood. The weather changes very quickly. Some time ago, they were still wearing short sleeves under their school uniforms, but now they have to wear winter capes. Standing in the corridor and looking towards the Forbidden Forest, it was all white and the lake was frozen. The occasional snowstorms also made Harry and his classmates' herbology classes unlucky, which meant that Harry and Draco had even less time to spend together. You know, Ravenclaw has herbology class with Slytherin. Harry had almost forgotten what Draco looked like. Because Draco has been very busy lately, busy with training. Slytherin lost to Hufflepuff again in Quidditch. Flint's trick seemed to have no effect at all, and Cedric didn't react at all to Flint's words. However, Flint insisted that this was because the game time was moved forward to before Christmas due to snow and wind. If it was after Christmas, Diggory would probably cry and quit the Hufflepuff Quidditch team. However, although Flint insisted this said, in practice he trained just like the Gryffindors, rain or shine. When Harry was missing Draco and arranging the Slytherin team, Ron, who was killing time in the lounge because of the snowstorm and the cancellation of the herbology class, spoke up. It seems that Dudley is really powerful. Look how heavy the snow is outside now. Slytherin still has to go to training. Harry turned his head in surprise. They hadn't spoken to each other for some time since the last time Ron spoke for Dumbledore. During this period, although they still went to get out of class together and ate together, they almost never talked to each other. The only thing was that when Ron was eating, he asked him to take the ketchup off. Haven't you seen their game? Harry curled his lips and said with a forced smile. He had known for a long time that he was being unreasonable, and the silence between him and Ron was just a farce. Just now, Ron was obviously sending him a truce. I think it has something to do with his magic that can crush broomsticks. That's not fair. Ron replied with the same smile. I feel so too. So, Ginny, do you really think we need to come? I told you, they'll get along eventually. They're like Puffball and Booger, they can't live without each other. There were no classes in the morning, so Fred and George were dragged to the Ravenclaw common room. They looked at Ron and Harry, who were having fun, and said separately, "Ugh, you two." Ginny said as if she wanted to vomit. Poorongrong is very interesting and is very popular with kids like you. Yes, it is covered with soft cream yellow fur and is spherical in shape. It is a very popular pet and does not mind being cuddled or thrown around. Besides, it's easy to feed, even in our home. It's a scavenger and will eat everything from spiders to leftovers, but its favorite thing is to use its long tongue to eat the dried boogers of wizards while they sleep. It is also very useful. Its hair can be used as a potion material, like Zygmunt Boodge's laughing potion. Fred and George said together as they gathered around their little sister, Ginny. Easy to feed. Cute. Laughter potion. Then why don't we have it at home? Ginny widened her eyes in curiosity. Well, this is all because of Ron, said Fred in disgust. George agreed. Yes, it was because of him that our dream of making a fortune from the laughing potion was shattered. So, there was such a thing in our family. Ginny looked at her brothers suspiciously. Ron was a very vain guy. If their family really had a pet that could replace Scabbers, Ron would never refuse. Yes, he once had one. That little guy was very interesting. I played with it at that time, as a quaffle. Then it ran away and Ron refused to have another one in the house. Yes, we hadn't thought of being a batsman at that time. It's all because of Wood. Fred and I will just have to give up our dreams of becoming chasers. Fred and George winked at each other. Did the poor little fellow really run away? You could have practiced on the goblins. I wonder why Ron always dislikes you guys. As far as I know, there are a lot. You tricked Ron into making an unbreakable vow for you, made Ron eat sour candies, which burned his tongue, and turned Ron's teddy bear into a giant spider, Ginny said angrily, her expression at this time looking particularly like her mother. Fred started all this, it has nothing to do with me. George raised his hand with a grin. Hey, my good brother. Fred was about to complain, but when he saw Ginny, who looked almost like his mother, he shrank his neck. Okay, but that was because we were too young back then. Yes, that's us, George, don't think you can get away with it. Fred looked at George. I've been punished before, too. The unbreakable vow incident left the left side of my buttocks different forever. I'm not much better, Fred. It's the only time I ever saw get dad mad like Mom did. Don't interrupt me talking to Ginny, George. Like the sour lollipop incident, I got beaten up by my mother for that too. Don't talk like you got beaten, and you, George, you're always there when you get beaten, okay, Ginny, keep listening to me. The teddy bear incident was all because of Ron. He broke my broomstick handle first. Fred and George said in unison. Merlin's beard. If I were Ron, it would be more than just a broom handle. You should know that if you break the unbreakable vow, you will die. Ginny's chest was heavy with anger. If you knew what I vowed, you wouldn't be muggle things. Fred read in a book his father brought back that the longest a person can hold their breath without breathing is 13 minutes and 42.5 seconds. Well, George, you're amazing. You remember it so clearly. Let me tell you, it's a book called the Guinness Book of World Records. It contains all kinds of weird world records. Canadian muggle named Robert Forster in 1959, well, yes, that's weird, Ginny. Ginny glared at Fred and the others. Okay, I'll get to the point. That pledge was not to hold your breath for more than 14 minutes. So what's the point of talking about that? Only a dead person could do that. Yes, Ron couldn't disobey even if he wanted to. Fred and George rubbed their left and right buttocks respectively. They recalled how they felt when their parents loved them. The next chapter will be posted later today thanks to classmate 20220115110332204 for the monthly ticket, and other classmates for the recommendation and subscription. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 358, Surprise After the Nightmare. In the corner of the Ravenclaw common room, Ron poked Harry. What? Harry rolled his eyes. This guy just made peace. What do you want to do now? Look over there, why are Fred and George here? Harry turned his head and looked in the direction Ron pointed. Ginny is a Ravenclaw here. Ron looked at Harry suspiciously. He began to think carefully about the days when they had not spoken, and even earlier, when Ginny seemed to always be near Harry during meals, and had made eye contact. Fred and George are Ginny's brothers. It's not strange for them to be here. They are both very smart. Are you a good brother? Ginny's angry. Seeing that Ron's expression was becoming more and more strange, Harry quickly accused Ron of being unreliable as a brother. Fred and George must have played some prank again, and Ginny can't stand it. Ron looked as if he was used to it. On the other side, we'll leave first. Wood is probably looking for us. When he sees Slytherins practicing, he's like he's taken a vitality tonic. Then we were miserable. I will also be pulled in to train together. My cloak is never dry, Fred and George said as they walked towards the entrance and ran away without looking back. Ginny looked very angry, and Ron's attention was obviously drawn to their departure. Harry breathed a sigh of relief and sat back heavily, curling himself up on the sofa. Wind blew on Harry's face as they flew lower and lower, finally flying in through a dark, broken window on the top floor. Now they were flying along a dark corridor with a door at the end of it. They flew through the door and saw a dark room with sealed windows. Harry was no longer on the owl's back. He watched it fly into a chair with its back to him. Beside the chair were two black shadows. They looked very similar, but of different genders, probably brother and sister. They were both very frightened. They all lowered their heads, sobbing softly, and were still trembling slightly. But it could be seen that they all had hunched backs, pale, doughy faces and small green eyes. "Oh, a kid from Hogwarts wrote me a letter." A cold, sharp and piercing voice came from the chair. "Amicus, Electo, why are you silent? Are you just happy about the new news I have received?" "Master." The man on the ground, who should be Amicus, it is more like a man's name, shouted, "Master, I am just too happy. I am very sorry." "What about you, Electo?" the grim voice said. "What are you afraid of?" "That this makeshift body of mine will give way to my own, and then turn upon you." "Master, if this is really the case, it should be my honor. Care about the lives of my servants. The owner of this body, Walton McNeil, is so stupid that he mistakenly believed that I was in a bad condition and dared to resist me." A cold laugh came from the chair. "Master, calm down. My sister and I have always been your most loyal servants." The brother and sister crawling on the ground said again, trembling, but they all betrayed, and turned to the other me and Dumbledore. "Electo? What about you? Who are you more loyal to? The greatest wizard Voldemort, your master, or a fifth-year Hogwarts student, Tom Riddle?" A tall figure appeared from behind a chair sleeve of the tall figure. "Master, don't, please." The woman reacted. The man next to her, who should be her brother, didn't dare to speak. He just trembled and closed his green eyes. "Heartbreaking," said the cold voice. The woman screamed in agony as if every nerve in her body was on fire. Harry's ears were filled with screams, and the scar on his forehead burned with pain, and he cried out too. Voldemort would hear him, would find him there. "Harry! Harry!" Harry opened his eyes. He lay on the lounge carpet with his face in his hands. The scar still burned with pain, and it made him cry. The pain is real. Everyone in the common room stood up and gathered around. Ginny was anxious to squeeze in, along with Neville, Michael, Terry, Anthony and other students in his grade. Ron knelt beside him, looking horrified. "Are you okay?" Ron said. "What's wrong with you?" Ginny cried and threw herself into his arms. He felt like he was floating in ecstasy, his mind was blank, and the burning pain seemed to have disappeared. She was the only real thing in the world, Ginny, the way she made him feel. He had one hand on her back, the other running through her long, delicately scented hair, and suddenly they were pulled roughly apart. "Ginny is my sister. It's Ron." He looked irritated now, as if he had been hit on the head, but there was also a hint of concern on his face. His eyes kept roving between his scar and Ginny. Ginny's face turned as red as her hair. But she looked at Harry intently, and the curious looks around her didn't seem to scare her at all. Harry looked at Ron. They stared at each other for a moment. Ron's head moved slightly, and Harry knew that meant, "Okay, if you must." Harry couldn't help but grin. He took Ginny's hand and pointed to the exit of the common room began. Everyone around smiled and made way, putting aside their worries. They all mistakenly thought it was a fake to get Ron to accept that he and Ginny were together. Chapter 359 Lingering Fears. A hall with double doors to the right of the Hogwarts entrance hall. In addition to being used as a restaurant, all special events such as entrance ceremonies and welcome parties are held here. There are 4 long tables in the middle of the hall, and another table for teachers as the upper seat. The ceiling was enchanted and changed throughout the day, looking just like the real sky. At lunch, most professors are present. So the other students should also be more focused on eating instead of craning their necks like ostriches to look at themselves. Harry and Ginny grabbed some food on the hall and hid in a room. He was still feeling frightened. He had thought that after so many rumors about him, his classmates at Hogwarts would have gotten used to it by now. Not to mention that when he was dating Ginny, he deliberately spread the news of the Triwizard Tournament, through Nick, whom he met by chance. McGonagall and the others were no exception. Dumbledore, who had been eating lunch in the headmaster's office recently, also attended in his best attire, staring at Harry with his X-ray eyes that could see through people's hearts. Professor Snape looked at Harry, then at the red-haired Ginny, his eyes filled with tears of emotion. He also calmly took the handkerchief from Lupin, whom he hated the most, to wipe his tears. Hagrid also cried like a tearful man. Yes, Hagrid also abandoned Ella Spade, who was hiding in the house, and dressed up for the event. It seemed that within less than one morning, all the teachers and students knew about Harry's love affair. And they all regard this as a big deal. Ginny. But fortunately, Percy, Fred and George are not like Ron. Congratulations on becoming part of our family. Percy shook Harry's hand enthusiastically, as if Harry and Ginny were getting married. They met Draco and others who had just finished training and had mud on their shoes and cold snow water all over their bodies. Filch was cursing on the side, but obviously, facing the Slytherins, he didn't dare to put them in detention with this excuse. After taking a seat in an empty room, Harry was thankful that at that moment, there weren't many people in the common room, only first and second years as everyone else was in class. In the first grade, Ginny and her classmates don't have classes. Harry's second-year herbology class was cancelled. If there were more people around, he didn't know if he or Ginny would have the courage to face their feelings. But on the other hand, he also began to wonder, why did the news spread so quickly when the others were clearly in class? The Triwizard Tournament isn't important? I don't know where you got this information from, but the Triwizard Tournament hasn't been held for almost a century, so not many people know about it. Not everyone can memorize Hogwarts, a history like Hermione. And you didn't even mention the most important aspect of the tournament, Fame Galleons. Each school has only one champion, and the person chosen is often equivalent to the best wizard in that school. There is often a considerable cash reward for winning the championship. Based on past historical records, it should be around 2,000 gold galleons. Ginny whispered while leaning on Harry's shoulder. She saw the confusion on Harry's face. When did you know that? Harry asked, stroking Ginny's hair. Fred and George told me on Friday the 27th of last month. They were very excited, saying that they finally had the startup capital. Ginny tilted her head. The heat from her mouth as she spoke made Harry's ears and even his heart itch a little. But Harry still keenly discovered the blind spot. What? I found a good way to make Ron not worry about our relationship for the time being. Ginny said in a muffled voice, burying herself in Harry's arms. Harry cleared his throat. You know, we only learned about the Triwizard Tournament from Hagrid at 9 o'clock at night, at the beginning of this month, on the Tuesday before last, after we finished training. November 27th to December 1st, that's 4 days. Ron also met Fred and even played together many times on the weekends. But, before Harry could finish his words, Ginny in her arms suddenly raised her head. But Fred and the others didn't say anything. Ron will definitely be very and won't care about us anymore. Ginny blinked. Sure, angry enough, in the afternoon charms class, before class, I mentioned that Ginny knew about the tournament a long time ago. Ron quickly put Harry's betrayal out of his mind, but Harry thought it might have something to do with Ginny's absence. Thinking of this, Harry had an urge to go to the first grade with Ginny. He suddenly thought that after he graduated in 5 years, Ginny would have to stay at Hogwarts alone for another year. If anyone, you know, that guy Michael has a crush on Ginny. After falling in love, Harry suddenly remembered how Michael treated Ginny. He was also confused and temporarily forgot that Michael was in the same grade as him. Just as Harry was thinking of the 100th way to be wary of Michael and Ron was muttering to himself about how mean Fred and George were to him, the bell rang. Well, I want everyone to shift their attention from Harry Potter's face to your standard book of spells, level 2. We have reviewed the dancing charm, learned the dilation charm, and the freezing charm. In this class, we are going to learn the most difficult spell of this school year and the one you will use the most in your life, the universal breaking spell. Professor Flitwick stood on a pile of books. Michael, is there anything on Harry's face that reflects what we are going to learn in this lesson? Your answer, the effect of the freezing spell we learned in the last lesson. Professor Flitwick screamed. Universal spell, freezing charm? The freezing charm is a spell that can freeze the target and stop it from moving. Michael said hesitantly. Very good, but that doesn't mean you can neglect your studies. The spell of the freezing curse, immobilis, immobilize all, comes from the Latin word immobilis, which means immovable. You may have read in books that this spell can only be used on animals, but if your skills are advanced enough, You can also disable items with special functions such as Muggle burglar alarms. Professor Flitwick agreed approvingly. Chapter 360 Marriage? General Counterspell. With this spell, Finite Incantatem is a general counterspell. When you become proficient, you can use the former finite. The end. Harry, does this spell work on weather spells? Professor Flitwick looked at Harry. It's useful, but not completely. The universal breaking spell can stop the effects of most spells, such as the limp legs spell and the dancing spell, but it has no obvious effect on more complex weather spells. At this time we need to use the cloud spell to withdraw the spell to break the weather spell. Harry said after thinking for a moment. Very good, 5 points for Ravenclaw. The bell rang and Professor Flitwick jumped down from the pile of books. Homework? Write a 1-foot essay on universal counteracting spells, Professor Flitwick said finally. Feet. After second grade, the length of our homework has become feet. I've almost forgotten how to write a 7-inch essay. I always write long ones unconsciously. Ron complained in her low voice. Ron always said this. After assigning homework, Harry heard it. The flowers are almost forming calluses. But in order to prevent Ron from remembering what happened between him and Ginny, he had to pretend to complain along. Harry. Out of Harry's arms. The students around immediately applauded. Facing the applause, Ron subconsciously straightened his head and chest because he loved the spotlight, but the next second, he thought about why it was so. What's wrong? What's wrong with me cuddling with my boyfriend? Ginny said, and Harry almost applauded. But he looked at Ron and pretended to be expressionless. At the same time, Ron pulled Ginny, and Ginny pulled him to a secluded place. I don't care what you do in private, but you still have to be careful in front of so many people. Ron's tone softened. After all, it was Harry who was with her sister, not Michael, Dean or the like. Harry on the side couldn't help but nod. In his opinion, this was pretty good. But Ginny was obviously dissatisfied. What about in front of other people? I've learned all about it. You particularly like to make up stories in front of many people. Ollivanders one that has never been found, saving Ravenclaw's Phoenix and Invisible Beast, playing a leading role in the team that defeated Voldemort. Are you embarrassed when it comes to my and Harry's turn? Ginny sneered. Ron started to babble. He couldn't believe that his always well-behaved and obedient sister would dare to speak to him like that. Harry also widened his green eyes. This was Ginny. It was really, really great. It's not the same. Yes, it's different. Be careful, I'm going to write to Mom. That you were in love too early. Ron stammered after he came to his senses. Ron, you were the one who made up the term puppy love, Harry added. You're jealous. You've never cuddled anyone in your life, and just because you were only kissed by our Aunt Muriel when you were little, you think you're the only one who can write letters? Mom and Dad must have known about this a long time ago. From Percy's letter. They'd love to accept Harry as one of our family, we'd cuddle and hug, and then get married right after graduation just like Harry's mom and dad and my mom and dad. Ron's attitude of preparing to tell such obviously angered Ginny, so much so that she started to speak incoherently. Get married, said Ron and Harry in unison. You are getting married. It was Myrtle, who must have just arrived. Tears flowed down Myrtle's face, and she covered her face and dived to the ground. Before Harry and the others could be surprised by Myrtle's appearance, a voice came from behind Harry. Are you getting married? How did you get here? Ron almost gasped. It was Draco. Face turned red with anger. Of course it's Ginny. You agreed. Ginny jumped up happily. No, it's all you. Damn you, Malfoy. Why are you here? Ron didn't know what to say, so he turned to Draco. He had clearly only reluctantly agreed to let Ginny and Harry date. How did it get into the subject of marriage? Didn't Harry faint today? He's dreaming about Voldemort again, after all. Ginny interrupted Draco before he could finish his words. What? Dream? It's about Voldemort. Harry, are you okay? Ginny had a look of horror on her face. She leaned on Harry again and touched him all over, trying to check his body. I am fine. Dumbledore knows about this, too. Harry, did you forget the dream about Voldemort because of Ginny? Harry agreed awkwardly. He slowly began to tell the content of his dream. So, Voldemort has an insider in Hogwarts. And little friend. That man is still a student. Ron rubbed his fiery red hair, unable to believe what he heard. I know that Walton McNeil. He was one of Voldemort's first Death Eaters and fought in the First Wizarding War. After Voldemort's fall from power, he claimed that he was under the Imperious Curse, so he was not imprisoned in Azkaban. Just like my dad. Draco lowered his head, not daring to look at Harry and the others. It's different. I think it's different. Your father is ours now. I know that McNeil too. He works for the Ministry of Magic, killing beasts that pose a threat to wizards. He nearly killed my uncle's Neville because he accidentally caught a little wizard who was throwing rocks at him. Luckily Jason ran away on his own, Ron said gloomily. Chapter 361, Sinecures at the Ministry of Magic. Diggory, Draco interrupted suddenly. What Diggory? Hasn't your giant-headed captain already used this trick before, and got beaten up by the Hufflepuffs? Why can't you forget that Cedric Diggory? Cedric is comparable to Harry, he also beat the Slytherins right out of the gate. What a joke. That pretty boy. Draco's words gave Ron, who was still remembering Jason, an outlet. I mean that McNeil is also from the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures at the Ministry of Magic. He belongs to the Dangerous Animal Disposal Committee. Draco frowned. Oh, but this is too far-fetched. Who knew you would think of Diggory? Although the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures of the Ministry of Magic only has 3 departments to the outside world, the Abnormal Office, the Beast Office, and the Ghost Office. But in fact, if you really count, there are more than 3, the Beast Office, Centaurant Liaison Office, Dangerous Animal Disposal Committee, Dragon Research and Restriction Bureau, Ghoul Rangers, Werewolf Capture Project Group, Werewolf Registry, the Alien Office, Goblin Liaison Office, House Elf Resettlement Office, Werewolf Support Services Department, the Misinformation Office, the Pest Advisory Office, and the Ghost Office. Ron said stubbornly. Hey, Ginny, why are you looking at me? After I learned that my father became the head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, I also wanted to work in the Ministry of Magic, to find a sinecure. I spend my free time writing. I want to be an author, like Skywalker. Ron said to Ginny, who looked like this is really my brother. A sinecure. Harry was also a little tempted. Yeah, something like the Centaur Liaison Office would be nice, since no Centaur has ever used it. There's also the Werewolf Capture Project team, which is also very idle, as can be seen from the fact that Fenrir Greyback is still at large. Werewolf Support Services. No werewolves are willing to register, and the Ministry of Magic has never done anything for werewolves. The Ghoul Rangers are also very good. They are only needed to drive out the ghouls in houses that have fallen accidentally into the hands of muggles. Ron knew all about these departments. You forget all these big moves Dumbledore has made lately, in conjunction with Mr. Weasley. I guess by the time you graduate, these departments won't exist anymore, or they will no longer be idle and start to play their due role. Draco curled his lips in disdain. Harry, don't learn bad things from Ron. Draco looked at Harry seriously, and Ginny beside him nodded eagerly. My dad has been doing a lot of it lately, only Ron wouldn't know. It's like the Dragon Research and Restriction Agency doesn't just seem to be preventing wild dragons from being seen by muggles, as it did before. On dragons. It seems that Charlie will come back from Romania too, because of this reform. Ginny said excitedly after gazing at Ron with disdain. She hasn't seen Charlie for a long time. Why are you talking about me? Doesn't Harry also want to find a free job in the Ministry of Magic? We are clearly talking about Harry's dream. There were 2 Death Eaters in that dream. You must know that, Draco. Ron was furious and changed the subject. Those 2? They just sound familiar to me. As Ron wished, Draco stopped complaining about Ron's bad habits and frowned. Shouldn't it? As a second-generation Death Eater on the surface, but a third-generation Death Eater in the true sense, he knew every Death Eater unless. I figured it out, maybe their nicknames are more famous. Harry said they might be related to Light. How could he not have thought of that? It's so simple. Carlo is also one of the 28 pure blood families. Are you sure? Let me think about it. They have green eyes and hunchbacks. The man is very fat and has a pig kidney face. Harry was skeptical. Red hair. Every Carlo has a hunchback. Ron said confidently. Okay, then who wrote the letter to Voldemort? Seeing Ron said the same thing, Harry agreed. I think he must be a Slytherin. Both parents should be Death Eaters. Draco, Crabbe and Goyle can be ruled out. Who else? Ron looked at the Death Eater expert Draco. Not necessarily Slytherin. From the fact that you were able to enter Ravenclaw, It can be seen that the Sorting Hat still values the opinions of students themselves. But the descendants of Death Eaters, there are only 3 of them in the whole Hogwarts, me, Goyle, and Crabbe. Draco paced on the spot, around Harry. Maybe he changed his name. Not everyone wants to bear the last name of their Death Eater parents. Harry raised his hand. Draco was very angry. Change your name. It's possible. Purebloods are all related to each other. Maybe that guy was by a relative and given a name that can't be associated with his origin. If that's true, his parents must have been sent to Azkaban, not like Draco's family who lied about being under the Imperius curse to avoid prison. Ron touched his chin, thinking, then. Draco was about to continue his analysis when he was interrupted by Ginny. Draco looked at Ron's little sister in surprise in his impression. Ginny has always been a shy little adopted girl at the Wheel Eyes. She had never greeted him except for politeness. Now you dare to interrupt him? What then? I think you should tell Dumbledore about this directly. Are you confident that you are smarter than Dumbledore? Ginny suddenly interrupted Harry and the other 2 looked at each other. Right, why haven't they thought of this before? Ron looked at Draco and said that it was because of his constant analysis that they were led into the ditch. Draco looked at Ron and Harry, saying that they were unreliable because of Ginny, who almost forgot such an important dream. Hey, boys. What are you all thinking about? Ginny pouted and looked at Harry and the other 2 who were communicating secretly with their eye contact. Ginny, I'm thinking about how to tell Dumbledore. Harry hugged Ginny. Password to the headmaster's office. Draco stammered as Harry and the others stared at him and his words were interrupted. Chapter 362 Harry Potter, Public Engagement? Harry and the others' sophistry obviously did not fool Ginny's sharp eyes. So they were scolded for a while. But I don't know whether it is lucky or sad. Somehow, the news of Harry's marriage spread throughout Hogwarts again. Just 40 minutes into their conversation. But this also left Ginny with no time to criticize Harry. She turned from Mrs. Weasley and her little lamb again, crawling in Harry's arms, her face as red as a monkey's butt. I don't understand why they all know this. I specifically asked Hermione and the others, and Myrtle went straight back to the girls' bathroom without saying anything. Ron said angrily, sitting on the floor in the Ravenclaw common room is so boring that he hides himself? Hiding and eavesdropping. Draco, who came to the Ravenclaw common room again after a long absence, also sat on the carpet. Not far away, Ryan, who was playing wizard chess with Luna, was hiding his fame and achievements. Ryan doesn't think he is a petty person, he just has a very good memory. Just like ordinary people will not hold a grudge against someone when they meet again many years later, just because they were scolded by him/her when they were a child. Because the hatred and pain at that time have long been erased by time. But if you have a good memory, especially someone like Ryan, it's like you just experienced it. So, it's understandable that Ryan would give Harry trouble whenever he thought of him. Harry exclaimed before Ron and the others almost pushed Ginny out of his arms, "Don't worry, Dad and the others won't know so soon. Maybe they want to communicate about how to celebrate Christmas." Ginny said against her will. She knew that Percy must have told his father and the others about her and Harry a long time ago. "Harry is for you." Ron looked at Zuwijin, who was flying towards Harry in surprise. Just as Harry's heart was about to leap into his throat, Zuwijin flew over to Ginny in his arms. "Fortunately, it's not me." The sudden surprise made Harry dizzy. There was one thing he hadn't thought about. WHO had received a letter from home at such a time. And rubs my head, why did she change today, fast? However, I can understand if you insist on marrying Harry. Your father and I support you. Then bring Harry back this Christmas. I will let Sirius hold the engagement ceremony at our house and his house. Your mother Molly Weasley, Mom, and the others know. Ginny's face turned pale. As she read the contents of the letter, she hesitated again, wondering whether to show it to Harry. If she didn't show it to Harry and unilaterally decided on the engagement, then their engagement would be a foregone conclusion. To her family she could say that Harry and she were getting married. Tell Harry that his family invites him to spend the summer vacation with them. As for Sirius, who was planning the wedding, she said that Harry was a little confused and asked him to just arrange the wedding without writing a letter. But there was one thing Ginny overlooked. That was because she had been staring blankly for too long. Harry might have been too polite to peek, but Ron was not. Ron picked up the letter, his face turned from white to red, then back to white again. His expression changed from worry to anger, and finally to dilemma. Merlin's beard. Mom and Dad know about it too. No. Ginny hurriedly stopped him. Why not, Harry? They mistakenly thought you and Ginny were getting married. We should arrange an engagement like Draco's father and others did for Draco and Pansy. Ron looked around, lowered his head and spoke in a low voice. Why are you bringing this upon me again? Draco cursed. Wait. You didn't deny it. Harry found the blind spot. When are you getting engaged? Do you want to join Harry? In order to mock Draco, Ron almost forgot his other identity, Ginny's brother. Dumbledore, the content of Harry's nightmare. Draco's eyes wandered. We haven't forgotten. I can talk to Hagrid right away. This was Harry. I can write back to Dad. Juvich is here. This is Ron. Yes, engagement is a good thing. When are you going to get engaged? Even Ginny's expression changed. Well, I'm already engaged. On the third day after we went to Harry's house. Draco said dejectedly. What? Of the four of us here, it seems that you, Ron, are the only one who is single. Not to mention getting engaged. Draco looked at the only single person here with empty eyes. What engagement? Which in Ravenclaw except Kate, Dad, and the others have agreed. Who do you think you are? Ginny curled her lips in disdain. Ron to look at his right hand as he began. If waking up from a dream there was nothing there. Ron, Abba what's the matter now? You have nothing to say, right? Ginny pressed on. At this moment, she wanted to beat herself to death by speaking up for Ron a few days ago. No, didn't you notice? Zinran took a few deep breaths and finally cleared his tongue. Letter. Lisa Dupin. Ravenclaw. And at this moment, when they looked at Lisa and the others also turned their heads. In their eyes, Harry was holding Ginny and moving to them. Is Harry Potter going to announce the news of his engagement? Lisa thought so, as she wanted to help keep the news secret because of their good relationship. Chapter 363. Harry Potter is dead? Harry still can't forget the moment a few days ago. That was the beginning of a tragic prologue. At that time, Harry obviously wanted to wave his hand to stop it, but because he was too nervous, he just raised his thumb. The nerves on his face twitched inexplicably, and his expression turned into a proud face. Ron wanted to say something, but just babble. Draco struggled to stand, but stumbled over his left foot and fell to the carpet. Ginny, perhaps out of shyness, said nothing. Then the nightmare was born. Our Ravenclaw savior Harry Potter is going to be engaged to Ginny from the Weasley family at Christmas. Lisa shouted at the loudest voice of her life while waving the letter. What's even more outrageous is that someone gave Lisa a loud voice amplifying spell. But Harry didn't blame Lisa, it was them who acted too easily to be misunderstood. And when Lisa was speaking, they had the opportunity to interrupt, but they were too nervous to say anything. After coming to his senses, Harry wanted to clarify, but he was stopped by Ginny. Don't you want to get engaged to me? Ginny's eyes were filled with tears. As for Ron, who is the most difficult to deal with, Ginny said, do you want me to become a joke? The news has spread. If you want to, does that mean that no one wants me? So they had no choice but to go with the flow. Until now, Lisa Dupin still thought that she had obtained Harry's consent and that it was Harry who asked her to spread the news. Otherwise, how could the letter be in her hands? Harry and the others did not stop her from talking and looked cooperative. But Harry no longer has any lingering memories of his previous tragic past. Because, Avada, eat the big melon. A cold voice sounded from behind him, accompanied by a green light of death. Then the light hit Harry's messy hair squarely at the ends. The surprised expression on his face froze and his body rolled over under the influence of inertia. Finally, like a big broken doll, it fell from the battlement of the wall and disappeared. With the death of Harry Potter, the world began to collapse. The ground, the moonlight, and the empty space all turned into colorful smoke. The last white world was born. But upon closer inspection, I found that this was a huge and empty platform, and the white color came from an extremely large ball of light in the center of the platform on all sides. It was a dark and distant darkness without even a trace of light, and Harry Potter, a being who should have been dead, was lying on the pure white ground, gasping for breath. So, what were you thinking just now? A rigid but solemn voice sounded from the light ball. Nothing. I'm wondering if I should go bald. You know, I already dodged the killing curse just now. Long time, as if it was expressing through silence. Do you think I'm a fool? Well, I just started thinking about Ginny again. Harry shrugged helplessly. Don't forget why you work so hard. The voice sounded again. I know everything. You've told me many times. was also accidentally made into a Horcrux by Voldemort. In order not to sacrifice me, Dumbledore resurrected Riddle. Riddle did not completely inherit Voldemort's memory, and Voldemort's current state meant that he would not move the Horcrux so quickly. But I still have to quickly get the Resurrection Stone hidden on the Gaunt family ring in the Gaunt mansion outside Little Hangleton. But, Ryan, don't you think your voice is a little strange? Also, how useful is the training just now in solving Voldemort's trap? In the words just now. After his relationship with Ginny was clear, the news of their marriage spread everywhere, and he wrote directly to Dumbledore through Zuwejan, and they told him the information of his dream. Ryan told Dumbledore the information that had been hidden from him. His identity, the function of the Horcruxes, and the whereabouts and current status of the Resurrection Stone. So he asked Ryan to train him. As for this training, didn't you say, my mental quality is too poor, even waving my hand can turn into a thumbs up? Lightball, Ryan said. At that time, Harry and the others to have happened problem, and it seemed like it was not his fault. Dilapidated castle. The sounds of bats flapping their wings and women screaming could be heard from the castle. Harry's gaze seemed to have awakened some terrifying existence. Harry, Harry. Pushing Harry's body. Harry was pale, covered in cold sweat, and kept muttering something like old bat. Nothing, just a nightmare. Harry calmly put on his glasses around immediately and cast dozens of evil curses on Ryan's bed behind him. Why has the layout of the castle changed again, and there are those disgusting traps? The most disgusting thing was the vampire bride who looked exactly like her mother. Harry, you're not, Ron gasped. I have suspected that Harry had had another dream about Voldemort. Not far away, Michael, who was awakened by Ron, muttered something and lay back in bed. For some reason, Michael now has some opinions about Harry. He looked at Michael and knew it had to be because of Ginny. After waking up from the dream, Harry had to face reality again. What on earth are Mr. Weasley and the others thinking? Are they really going to get engaged? And now that Voldemort has a body again, will his next target still be Dolohov? Also, now Voldemort is no longer alone, he has 2 intact Death Eater servants. Chapter 364 Percy's Cooking Class. The auditorium now looks particularly grand and majestic. Not only were there a dozen Christmas trees covered with silver frost, and thick ribbons of mistletoe and holly crisscrossing the ceiling, but there was also enchanted snow, warm and dry, floating gently from the ceiling. Dumbledore led them in singing some of his favorite Christmas carols, and Hagrid's voice became louder and louder as he downed glass after glass of eggnog. At the Gryffindor table, Percy hadn't noticed that Fred had bewitched his prefect badge to say Dumbo, and he stupidly kept laughing, asking what was that. Draco, sitting at the Slytherin table, was saying sweet things to Pansy beside him. Crabbe and Goyle beside him had the same expression as Ron, stroking their foreheads with one hand and eating with the other to divert their attention, and guzzling pumpkin juices for the Ravenclaw table. There was naturally no need to say much. Ginny had been snuggling in his arms and feeding Harry his 3rd Christmas pudding of Harry's arms. Yes, we had agreed to get engaged on Christmas, but in the end, Ginny couldn't help revealing a resentful look on her face. Voldemort, they are all busy dealing with Voldemort. Look, Draco and the others are the same. Harry laughed. Then, what's this in front of us? Ginny shook her hair, changed her position on Harry, and pointed at Dumbledore on the stage. Lucius Malfoy, and even Lupin Sirius are too busy to celebrate Christmas. Maybe he was given Polyjuice Potion by another Idle Order member. Harry ruffled his messy hair. Harry himself didn't believe this. Harry has been very busy lately, Quidditch, dealing with classmates who are curious about his wedding, and training in his dreams. But Harry did try to find out the information in the dream directly, especially the mysterious Voldemort's accomplice. You know, none of the Death Eaters now want to follow Voldemort. After all, Dumbledore has a more rational and handsome Voldemort on his side. In addition to Dumbledore's current power, joining the Death Eaters now is equivalent to joining the German Nazis in 1945. That mysterious accomplice must be a die-hard supporter of pure blood supremacy, or he must have a grudge against the Order of the Phoenix. Harry and his team had spent almost all their trained energy just searching for the suspect. Dumbledore, after receiving the letter, Mr. Weasley and his team became busy again and didn't even celebrate Christmas. So how did Dumbledore himself get free? He obviously has more things to do. I think that's Dumbledore. Only Dumbledore could eat that stuff with such enjoyment. Ron pointed to a plate in front of Dumbledore that contained a bunch of dark, slightly trembling cockroach-like things. Well, Maybe he's worried that Voldemort will break into Hogwarts, Harry explained. Well, let's not talk about these annoying things. I might as well learn how to make treacle tart, which is Harry's favorite after-meal dessert. Ginny said best to eat it while hot with milk and egg batter. Ginny muttered to herself. I've never seen you want to make something to eat before, and where did this thing come from? Ron stared at Harry enviously. Susan of Hufflepuff, niece of the current Minister of Magic, Ms. Bones. Percy walked over with his head held high, a medal with the word Fool shining brightly on his chest. How did you know? Ron tried to suppress his smile. I've seen it. I'm a Gryffindor and a responsible prefect. I'm not like you who always stays in the common room. Percy changed the angle to show the medal on his chest. Okay, but I still like mince pie. Ron smacked his lips. I like it too. Mrs. Weasley's mince pie is delicious, but I wonder why there's meat in the name. But Harry interrupted. Yeah, I know that. What? Are you looking at weird, right? I learned it before you were born because I was interested in it. But as I grew up, I found something more worthy of devoting my life to. Percy puffed out his chest proudly. Minister of Magic. Ron guessed. Percy glared at Ron, but Harry felt that Ron must have guessed right. Percy cleared his throat pretentiously. Then let me continue. Ginny, you don't have to remember. You can go back and ask your mother. After all, it will be 7 years before you officially get married. 7 years. Ginny exclaimed. That's 7 years, Ginny. Don't think about waiting 5 years for Harry to graduate and get married. Percy looked at Ginny seriously. Mince pie is a Christmas pastry made by chopping up dried fruits such as raisins and apples, adding sugar, spicy seasonings, and the hard fat and sheep kidneys. What about the meat? Ron picked up a piece of mince pie and took a bite. It's a food that came from the Muggle world and was introduced to the Wizarding world at Christmas. Muggles don't have magic and can't store it for a long time, so you add dried fruits and spices to it and reduce the proportion of meat. So much so that now mince pies only have dried fruits and spices, Percy said, shaking his head. Percy, I think you have the potential to be a Hufflepuff. I got into the Ministry of Magic. Percy sighed. Ryan, who was just sitting there listening to gossip about Hogwarts and even Hogsmeade out of boredom because Luna and Hermione had gone back to celebrate Christmas, curled his lips. Percy undoubtedly made the same mistake as most of the Wizarding world, looking down on Hufflepuffs. In Ryan's opinion, if he really wanted to become Minister of Magic, Hufflepuff was the most likely candidate. You know, 3/4 of the employees in the Ministry of Magic are from Hufflepuff. It's not that Gryffindors, Ravenclaws, and Slytherins are incompetent. The main reason is that there are not so many people in the other 3 colleges. Hufflepuff is the largest house in the house. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 365 Minister for Magic. The Minister of Magic is the supreme leader of the British Wizarding world and the highest-ranking person in the Ministry of Magic. The Minister for Magic has overall authority over all matters relating to the British Wizarding community, and he also has exclusive jurisdiction over the Ministry of Magic as a whole. This position is equivalent to the Prime Minister in British Muggle Society of Magic, but elections must be held regularly, with a maximum interval of 7 years. So, obviously, if you want to be Minister of Magic, the most important thing is to gain the recognition of the wizards in the Wizarding world. If you do well, you may be able to do it until retirement. This can be seen from the term of office of a certain Minister of Magic, nicknamed the Spoiler. His name is Ferrus Spavin, a wizard who is very good at speaking. 109, he became the Minister of Magic. No one would have thought that he, who had no other merits except for his public speaking, could stay in this position for 38 years. At the age of 147, he began to retreat to the second line. But this was not because he was too old to work, but because he attended Queen Victoria's funeral wearing an admiral's hat and foot protectors. So he was fired for violating the Protection Act, just like Millicent Bagnold in modern times. Bagner was fired for defending a large part of the Wizarding celebrations after Voldemort's defeat, because they violated the International Statute of Secrecy. During Spavin's tenure, he was assassinated several times, but they were all because of his mouth. For example, he was assassinated, kicked, by a centaur because of a centaur joke, which begins with a centaur, a ghost, and a dwarf walked into the same tavern, but other than that, his position as Minister of Magic was surprisingly secure. The fact that he achieved the longest-serving Minister of Magic in history was not just because he could speak, but the most important thing was that he was born in Hufflepuff, and with his speaking ability, he won the support of the majority of the wizarding world Hufflepuffs. Hufflepuff, Ferris Spavin, is he a Hufflepuff? Harry, who was talking to Ryan, questioned. Yes, the first Minister of Magic, Ulrich Gamp, was also a Hufflepuff. Ryan replied in his mind. Since Kate and the others went back to celebrate Christmas, Ryan, who stayed in Hogwarts on a whim, became a lonely old man. He was so bored that he started talking to Harry Potter about the most important qualities to be the Minister of Magic. Well, maybe also origin, but it's clearly written in the book, Harry replied. It's obviously not written, right? A Hufflepuff for Minister of Magic is a shortcut that was deliberately covered up by the other three running houses, all those ministers who don't have a label on their house origins and don't have a bad reputation are Hufflepuffs. Ryan rolled his eyes in disdain. Then let me ask you a question. You must be familiar with Diggory, the central figure in your recent topic. So, what college is he from? Ryan asked. Hufflepuff. Harry replied in his mind as he pretended to be tired and closed his eyes. Yes, all Diggorys are Hufflepuffs. The fourth Minister of Magic is a Diggory, Eldritch Diggory. Ryan's voice rang in Harry's heart. But this was shocking news to Harry. How could it be possible? In Harry's impression, at least in the mouths of Ron and Draco, the position of Minister of Magic has always been in the hands of Slytherin and Gryffindor, and occasionally a Ravenclaw stands out. Hufflepuff? Aren't they just a bunch of mediocre people? You have always been in the hands of the majority, that is, Hufflepuff, Ryan replied. But, isn't Dumbledore a Hufflepuff? Harry looked doubtful, and Ron and Ginny in his arms almost thought he was having a nightmare again. Being born in that college is just a shortcut. As long as you are not a Slytherin, you will still be chosen as a minister if you are good enough. Just like Dumbledore, he was invited to be a minister 3 times. Ryan was speechless. Slytherin? But Draco? Harry didn't know how to respond. But according to Draco Malfoy, the Ministry of Magic has always been in the hands of these purebloods, right? You can say that, but the position of minister is not like that. At the surnames of past ministers of magic, Damocles Rowell, Perseus Parkinson, Josephina Flint, Rodolphus Lestrange, Hector Foley. Purebloods? They are all obviously from Slytherin House too. But because of their bad reputation, the colleges they graduated from were kept secret by policy. Damocles Rowell founded the most cruel prison, Azkaban, and his descendants have been committed to maintaining this prison. Edrich Diggory died of dragonpox because he wanted to abolish Azkaban. Was pathologically opposed to all Muggle technology, removed all flush toilets from the Ministry of Magic, and even demanded that Hogwarts do the same. Rodolphus Lestrange tried to close the Department of Mysteries. He hated all advanced technology, including magic. He believed it would threaten their pureblood magical knowledge. Hector Foley allowed Grindelwald to do what he did, turned a blind eye to him, and pursued a policy of appeasement, like an ostrich burying his head in the sand, as if danger would not come. Ryan replied. So, Fudge is not the worst. Ryan, are you saying all this just to make one thing clear? Percy took a detour. Harry opened his eyes and looked at Percy, who was still talking about his cooking experience. Percy looked extremely pleased. Even when he was a superior, he had never been so happy. Harry began to wonder if Percy had offended Ryan, causing him to spend so much energy analyzing the history of magic, which he hated the most. Chapter 366 The Betrayer, Draco Malfoy? Just as Harry was subconsciously wondering about some kind of interaction between Percy and Ryan, he did not notice that Dumbledore on the teacher's desk had disappeared. This is a winding river. Many years ago, it was crystal clear and fed the life around it. But with industrialization and the establishment of factories, everything changed ominous. There was no sound but the blackened whimpering of the river, and no sign of life except for a lean fox that stole down the bank and sniffed hopefully at a few fish and chip wrappers in the deep weeds. At this moment, with a soft plop sound, a slender figure wearing a hood appeared out of thin air by the river. The fox was stunned, staring at the strange figure that had just appeared with alert eyes. It took long, brisk steps forward, its long cloak rustling through the grass. The fox was now almost lying in the low bushes, waiting until the figure walked away. Then he swooshed out of his hiding place and ran toward the shore. There was a flash of blue light, a scream, and the fox fell to the ground as if dead. A spy was exposed by Voldemort. This was also the reason why he came here this time. He thought it was a Death Eater sent by Voldemort. It all started with Harry's new dream. In Harry's dream, Voldemort seemed to have changed his goal because of the construction of a new prison, the cage. Importantly, there was a spy in Hogwarts. In this case, he was still willing to join Voldemort's spy. And Voldemort now seems to have changed his approach. He no longer hides his existence. He began to summon some of the Death Eaters who were still willing to return to him through the Dark Mark. Severus was one of them. Tactics that Severus had been practicing for so many years to wait for Voldemort to resurrect and return to his service seemed to be of no use to Voldemort now. Fortunately, perhaps because Voldemort was not in his prime, Severus was able to escape. Being surrounded and blocked, he had no choice but to return to the house in Spider's Tail Alley. I climbed up the river bank, walked through the rusty railings, and headed towards the rows of dilapidated brick houses. He quickly passed through an alley between houses and turned into another street that was almost identical to cobblestones, until he came to the last house, where a dim light shone through the curtains in a downstairs room. Smelling the smell of the sewage river blown by the evening breeze. After a few seconds, there was a movement behind the door, and then the door opened a crack, and a man looked at them, with long black hair draped on both sides like a curtain. In the middle was a grayish-yellow face and a pair of black eyes. "There you are, Dumbledore." The man opened the door, his wand still tightly clasped in his hand. "Severus, great, you seem to be okay." Dumbledore looked up and down at the man in front of him. He was still wearing his black wizard robe, spotless. Even if you look at it from a magical perspective, you can sense that its quiet and deep magic is still like a dead quagmire. It seemed that the man in front of him had just woken up and showed no sign of escaping from Voldemort and his Death Eaters. Snape naturally noticed the doubt in Dumbledore's eyes. He wants to make peace. Seeking peace, is it Voldemort? Dumbledore suspected that his ears were broken. Yes, the little boy that Voldemort spoke of in Harry's dream seemed to be very clear that I was a spy. Voldemort chose to let me go, as long as I can escape the pursuit of his new faces. Snape said as he stepped aside and motioned Dumbledore to enter. Snape clicked the door shut as Dumbledore entered. What Dumbledore saw was a small living room, which felt like a dim, soft-walled cell. Books lined the walls, most of them in old black or brown leather covers. A worn, fuzzy sofa, an old armchair, and a rickety table were crowded together in a dim circle of light cast by a candlelight hanging from the ceiling. This place has a desolate and deserted atmosphere, as if no one lives there usually. Snape motioned for Dumbledore to sit on the sofa. Dumbledore took off his cloak and threw it aside, then sat down. "Would you like something to drink?" Snape asked calmly. "No need. But before I ask you about Voldemort, I would like to ask you why you went to Voldemort, without my permission." Dumbledore's eyes burned with anger. "You know why I live. Harry Potter's life is more important than anything else. There's a venomous snake in Hogwarts, and that venomous snake may be someone Harry is familiar with, or even his friend." Snape's low voice sounded in the room. "You doubt Draco?" exclaimed Dumbledore. "Yes, Harry Potter is his friend, but so is Crabbe and Goyle. And Pansy is his fiancée. Voldemort is a devil who is good at playing with people's hearts. I doubt that Draco Malfoy would betray someone less important to him for important to him, like Peter Pettigrew did. Peter is from Gryffindor, which represents courage." "Slytherin," Snape said firmly. "That kid has a pure soul." "I believe him," Dumbledore replied. "No, I don't believe it." Snape frowned. The two of them were in a stalemate at this moment. Chapter 367, Members of the Order of the Phoenix gathered in Room 1. The atmosphere was becoming increasingly awkward, and it was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. "Someone's coming again." Snape raised his eyebrows. I looked at the opposite corner and saw something like a mirror hanging on it, but it did not reflect the scene in the room. There were many dark figures swaying around in it, but they were all blurry and unclear. How these figures will appear. Dumbledore showed a curious look. "Yes, the original magic mirror has always been like this. If the whites of the eyes of these figures inside show, it means I'm in trouble. But it's too much trouble. I'm not a lunatic like Moody who stares at a dark magic detector all day. Calculating the time, I should go open the door. Auror, who is well known in the wizarding world. He has long gray hair, a large piece of flesh is missing from his nose, taken away by Evan Rosier, Every inch of skin on his face seems to be scarred, his mouth is like a big crooked gash, and one of his eyes is a magic eye, which is much larger than the other normal eye, round like a coin, and a distinct bright blue. This magic eye can see through invisibility cloaks, walls, doors, and even the back of Moody's own head, so the wizarding world also calls him Mad Eye Moody. One of his legs is a prosthetic and it makes a clicking sound when he walks. He was an excellent orar, and he had captured more than half of the people in Azkaban, so he had made many enemies for himself. Since retiring at an old age, Moody has become more and more suspicious. He doesn't trust anyone and thinks he sees dark wizards wherever he goes, so always stay alert has become his motto. At this moment, he was looking at everything in the room with his magic eyes like a hyena. It seemed that even Dumbledore's presence could not reassure him nothing had happened. "Oh. This is my first visit to Snape's house." His distinctive, shrill voice ranged out from the room because he was too excited. His top hat fell off. "Hurry up." An equally shrill voice came from DGE's arms. It was a huge pocket watch. "There's no rush now. He is also a member of the original Order of the Phoenix." Next to Sturgis, on Dumbledore's right, was the only witch present. She had rosy cheeks and the same dark black hair as Snape, but unlike him, her hair was not greasy. Her name is Hestia Jones. He is Kingsley Shacklebolt, an outstanding Order of the Ministry of Magic, who acts steadily and cautiously. A new member of the Order of the Phoenix. Dumbledore explained when he saw Snape staring at the only new face among them. Kingsley is a bald, tall, dark-skinned wizard with a gold ring on one ear. Judging from his appearance alone, it is impossible to reconcile Dumbledore's evaluation of him with his true self. Outstanding. It goes without saying that he is outstanding to be here with other founding members of the Order of the Phoenix, to a place where there might be Voldemort and his Death Eaters. Snape said sarcastically. Never heard comments like excellent, steady, and cautious from Dumbledore. "Hello, Mr. Snape. Although we did not face the battle we should have, it would be helpful if you could provide some information about your encounter with Voldemort and your escape from him. Maybe we can still get there. He may still be very weak," Kingsley said slowly. His voice was low and slow, but it contained a calming tone. "Yes, this Brad is right. It's not that I look down on you. Snape, your skills are great, but given your level, you can still escape from Voldemort and his Death Eaters unscathed. Then perhaps now is a good opportunity to catch Voldemort. Come to think of it, my wand hasn't tasted Voldemort yet." Moody's slightly crazy voice rang out in the room. Cough cough. Dumbledore's cough drew everyone's attention away from Snape. The current Voldemort has not been resurrected, or he deliberately did not resurrect. He is now just possessing the body of the betrayer in his eyes. The subordinates he called upon again are just consumables in his eyes. Then, Dumbledore didn't finish his words, but others also heard his hidden meaning. He was afraid of the sacrifices among the people in front of him. The reason why Snape was able to escape was only because Voldemort did not have many consumables in his hands that would allow him to exert his full strength. Sacrifice? I've been prepared for this since I became an Auror. Albus, you are really old. Moody's magic eyes rolled wildly in his eye sockets, just like his burning murderous intent. Can I say something first? Voldemort sent me back to make peace with us. What we should focus on now is not how to catch him. As far as I know, Voldemort relied on the magic that made him immortal. Even Dumbledore couldn't catch him before he was resurrected. Our main focus now should be on a more important target, the venomous snake in Hogwarts, the spy called Little Friend by Voldemort. Snape sneered. In the next 10 minutes or so, Snape began to talk in his cold and stiff voice about what he had seen and heard from Voldemort, as well as his communications with Dumbledore. Besides the two dead bastards, the Carrow siblings, there are new faces that you don't even recognize. Moody clenched the wand in his hand. Also, Albus, I also think that Draco Malfoy is a big suspect. Don't tell me you believe him. The Potter brat believes him too. There was such a person, who was trusted by you and another Potter kid at the time, but what happened? I don't think I need to say much about that man's name. Moody sneered. There is another chapter that will be posted later before 12 o'clock today. P.S. Thanks to Ming Jiang for his 10 monthly tickets, and other classmates for their recommendations and subscriptions. Chapter 368 Chapter 144 Riddle's Identity. Peter Pettigrew is the man's name. He was a member of the Order of the Phoenix, had a clean family background, and was from Gryffindor, a dwarf family that was almost isolated from dark wizards. As for Draco Malfoy, His surname is closely associated with Death Eaters. He is also a bad guy who was sorted into Slytherin as soon as the sorting hat touched him. A rotten orange is a rotten orange. If the Malfoys can change, I can only tell you 2 words: dream on. The blood of betrayal and speculation is engraved in their hearts. Moody said sarcastically. That's enough. Alastair. That kid Draco is impossible. What's more, his father handed something into my hands. This thing concerns Voldemort's life and is one of the cornerstones of his immortality. Such a great sin, even if Draco killed Harry, or I, it would not be possible to undo Lucius's mistake. In fact, in my heart, I already knew who that person might be. Dumbledore paused and then said, Tom Riddle. Did you? And he set a trap for Voldemort. Snape couldn't help rolling his eyes. What are you guys saying? What does this have to do with that defense against the dark arts professor? Scarlet Witch was born in this room. Wait, this news, Kingsley, you little brat, it's better not to stay here. Moody suddenly interrupted again. Moody was not surprised at all. In his eyes, Snape was a spy who joined the Order of the Phoenix and the Death Eaters when he was a student. In terms of seniority, Snape is probably not much worse than him. Well, it seems that this matter cannot be resolved in a short time. Even Dumbledore smiled bitterly. He began to draw out his wand and chant long, difficult spells, and blue rays of light emerged from his wand. Then there was the sound of the pressure cooker boiling. The living room, which was narrow just now, suddenly expanded. The sofa became very long, and the bookshelf that could be considered a wall just now looked particularly funny in this room. It gives people an indescribable sense of humor. Very good, a very good traceless stretching spell. But this is my home. Snape couldn't help but reveal a little anger. Happy Lily had also come here after he became a wizard. It can be said that this place is also filled with his happy and beautiful side. Don't worry, the living room will be back to its original state in 2 hours. And, Kingsley, you don't have to go out, Dumbledore smiled. He waved his wand and the sofa slid behind the other wizards present appeared. You still remember that I like this? Moody took a sip intoxicatedly. You know, I never drink drinks given to me by others when I'm outside. I don't drink anything too strong. Seeing Kingsley's deliberate confusion, Moody laughed. He took out a curved bottle of wine. It's all thanks to this. I'll forget it. As a lady, it's not a good thing to get drunk in front of a group of men. Hesika waved her hand. Indeed, sherry is also called cooking wine. Because of its unique aroma, it is deeply loved in the UK as a wine to drink before meals. But relatively speaking, its alcohol content is not low, which is consistent with its origin in southern Spain. On the other side, Dumbledore waved his wand again after hearing this, and the sherry in front of Hesika turned into a glass of iced pumpkin juice. Yes, that's the taste. I haven't had this unique pumpkin juice since I left Hogwarts. Hestia smacked her lips. Then I'll let Hagrid provide you with his unique experience in growing pumpkins. Dumbledore smiled. In addition, Snape went upstairs naturally and brought back several plates of food from somewhere. Moody shook his head to push his long gray hair away from his face, then pulled a plate of sausages over to his stump of a nose and sniffed. He took a knife from his pocket, thrust it into one end of a sausage, and began to eat. After about 10 minutes, everyone was almost full and satisfied. Now it's time to talk about who Riddle is. Moody took out another dirty-looking handkerchief from his pocket and wiped his mouth. Instead, use some easy-to-use cleaning spells, such as clean up, whirlwind clean, etc. As an Auror, or a former Auror, he always adhered to the principle of not using magic if possible. Before we talk about him, whirlwind clean up. Diggle stretched out his wand, which absorbed most of the oil stains, leaving only the handkerchief in Moody's hand that was still smoking slightly. Thank you, D-Jet. Moody said in a sarcastic tone. You know, if it wasn't in front of you, the people who can give me a sense of security, and a wand suddenly appeared, what would happen? Fainted. D-Jet jumped up lively. No, Cruciatus. Moody said in a gloomy tone. Although the Ministry of Magic was reluctant to give me a promotion or more allowances, they were willing to give me the privilege of using the unforgivable curses. Because what? Because they fucking know I'm a good guy. I've never been crazy. Everyone knows they are guilty. Why can't I be vigilant or even attack them? But it's all right now. And everything is fine. Albus, you're finally sovereign. Moody said drunkenly, burping from time to time. Sorry, Moody is drunk. D-Jet quickly covered Moody's mouth. He's not drunk. He's more sovereign than anyone else. I make mistakes, too. Now, let me tell you about Riddle's identity. A powerful weapon to defeat the current Voldemort and an indispensable part of the best solution. Dumbledore looked at the stunned crowd. Except for Snape, who already knew about it and was munching on a piece of bread that looked tasteless with his head down. Chapter 369 Harry's Reverie. Voldemort is more like a horror story to the new generation today. And for the members of the Order of the Phoenix, he is a real nightmare. Can you imagine, after a day's work, you walk home with a happy pace, you are thinking about what delicious food your gentle wife will prepare for you tonight, and whether your lively daughter will pester you to tell a story. However, when you find that the dark mark is hovering over your house, you know what you will see when you go in. There are only corpses and mess in the house. These experiences may not befall an ordinary Ministry of Magic employee's home, because Voldemort and his men will not kill wizards casually. But to members of the Order of the Phoenix, it is as common as breathing and drinking water. In the nightmarish First Wizarding War, their lovers, children, and friends all faced death one by one. So, even when Dumbledore, their leader, said that young Voldemort, apart from Voldemort, was already one of them, they couldn't accept it. The best solution? All of us here are willing to sacrifice ourselves to kill him. I don't need the so-called best way. Me too. I think I'm going to remove the Order of the Phoenix. I can't accept working with such a bad, filthy, devilish guy who is as dirty as a sewer. Except for Snape, everyone else present expressed their opinions. I'm talking about Riddle, before he became Voldemort. Dumbledore sighed. It makes no difference to us. Moody said firmly. If he is truly innocent, after defeating Voldemort, I am willing to kill him and then commit suicide. Hestia, who seemed to be the most talkative, said grimly. Her sister died at the hands of Death Eaters. What do you think, Snape? To me, don't be so self-indulgent. The so-called best way is for Harry. The only way to truly kill Voldemort was to let Voldemort kill Harry himself. But with that nasty Riddle, there is no need for Harry to be sacrificed. Snape stroked his wand, looking like he would kill anyone who asked to sacrifice Harry. He was originally one of those firmly opposed Riddle's existence. Because Voldemort was the murderer of Lily, he doesn't mind killing anyone who has a connection with Voldemort. Not to mention Tom Riddle. In this regard, he was even willing to stand on the same side as that annoying guy Sirius. However, after learning that Harry was Voldemort's Horcrux, Riddle compromised after knowing that he could kill Voldemort without sacrificing Harry, a trap for Voldemort. Moody took a sip of wine. He did this for two reasons. He wanted me to extend my life, like Nick did. He knows that the only thing I'm worried about is Voldemort. I'm beginning to wonder if what Rita Skeeter said is true. You're not going to have an affair with the guy with the title of Dark Lord. Moody had a strange expression, which combined with his face full of wrinkles, made him look particularly terrifying. Is it true that Voldemort turned his love into hatred just because you don't like him? Hestia showed a look of satisfaction. In her mind, millions of words of love and hatred between Voldemort and the greatest white wizard had already emerged. Okay, let's talk about the real point. That's what Voldemort meant by peace. Dumbledore shrugged helplessly, sighed. Harry, who was in his dream, smacked his lips, wondering what he was dreaming about. The semester was over, and a silence as thick as the snow on the ground enveloped the entire castle. Harry didn't feel bored, but rather peaceful. He was very happy to think that he and Ginny could date boldly around Hogwarts Castle without being disturbed. This meant they could walk hand in hand through the Black Lake without being seen by anyone, and fly around the Quidditch pitch with Ginny. For Ron, Draco and the others who stayed at school with Ginny, they should be tactful enough to give them some private space. Besides Ron, Draco is not single, and Pansy has decided to stay at Hogwarts instead of going home for Christmas. This means that as long as Harry can deal with Ron, this long Christmas holiday will belong to him and Ginny alone. How to do it? Got it. Let Ron go and accompany Percy and the others. After all, it is a holiday for family reunion. And so, with longing for the days to come, the dawn of Christmas arrived. The weather is cold today, and everything is white. Harry and Ron were the only ones left in the bedroom, and they were woken up by Ginny early in the morning. She was fully dressed and holding gifts for both of them. Wake up, she said loudly, drawing the curtains to see you. I am a free man, I can go wherever I want. Harry, this is your gift. Ginny sat on Harry's bed naturally and played with Harry's messy hair as if no one was around. What gift? Harry sat up, suddenly fully awake. "Ginny, this is the boys' bedroom." Ron couldn't help but yell when he saw Ginny treating him as if he didn't exist. "Is there a rule that girls can't enter the boys' dormitory? Here, this is your Christmas present," said Ginny, throwing Ron's gift to him. By now, Ginny was immune to Ron's sour remarks. In her opinion, Ron was just jealous. If Ron had a girlfriend, she would probably be more extreme than her. As Ron's sister, Ginny could bet on that. She knew what kind of man Ron was. Chapter 370, Traces of Moon City. Ron had no idea how his sister was framing him. When I heard about the gift, he was actually a little less angry. While Ginny and Harry were being affectionate with each other, he couldn't wait to open the gift. A pair of red gloves appeared in his hands. "It looks a bit rough, but it's not bad," Ron said, half disdained and half happily. But the next second, his expression froze, looked much more refined. "What are you looking at?" "Oh, I need to practice." Ginny stretched and lay down on Harry's four-poster bed. "Is this in my hand for practice?" Ron began to doubt his life. Just then Hedwig suddenly flew into the room with a very small package in her mouth. "Hello," Harry said happily after it landed on his bed. "Are you going to talk to me again?" It bit his ear gently in a very affectionate manner, and this greeting was much more precious than the gift it brought him. It turned out that the small package was from the Dursleys. They gave Harry a toothpick with a short note asking him to find out if his engagement meant he wouldn't have to come back to their house anymore. "Your uncle and aunt also know about it. I think they're absolutely right. You can sleep in my room." Ginny's square face flushed words. He chose to ignore them. Harry began opening the other presents. This year's gifts are much less than last year. This is all because Sirius made Harry a VVIP at the Owl Post Office. As a VIP, you can selectively refuse to accept gifts other than those on the whitelist. As for VVIPs, they can use magic to set up an additional receiving point. This was the case with Harry, sent to a room that Sirius bought in Hogsmeade specifically for storing gifts. The other Christmas presents Harry received were much more satisfactory. Hagrid gave him a big bag of fudge, which Harry decided to soften by the fire before eating. Ron gave him a book called Flying with the Cannons, which told some stories about his favorite Quidditch team, and Draco bought him an ornate quill pen. Harry unwrapped the last gift, which turned out to be a brand new hand-knitted sweater from Mrs. Weasley. "I guess I have a legitimate reason to wear the Weasley sweater this year." Harry put on the sweater and smiled at Ginny. Ginny took off her cloak. She was also wearing a Weasley sweater underneath. "Oh, where are Fred and George?" According to last year's procedure, they would have broken into our dormitory at this time. Well, maybe Percy would have been dragged in as well. According to them, Christmas is a day for the whole family to reunite. Ron couldn't help but complain. At that time, he wanted to lie in the dormitory for a whole day and play with his gifts. Ginny's eyes rolled. "They are waiting for you. They asked me to ask you to go to the Gryffindor common room." "Huh? What about you guys?" Ron noticed something was wrong. "Where we go is none of your business." Ginny curled her lips and Harry nodded. Harry, and finally sighed helplessly. "Okay, I'm leaving. But you have to be sensitive. You should know that you are still a child, Ginny. Only a first year." Ron walked out angrily, leaving Harry and Ginny staring at each other on the four-poster bed. "I guess I'm still very sleepy." Harry's throat was dry. "Me too." Ginny also crawled into bed. Next to them, Ryan, who had been unnoticed, was giving a wonderful performance. He smacked his lips, and the next moment, Ryan appeared in Smith Castle. The pajamas on his body quietly turned into a luxurious black wizard robe. It was also time to start installing the bathroom. Speaking of bathrooms, there is actually no shortage of them in Smith Castle. There is a bathroom in the room next to each bedroom floor. Entering the elevator, the door made of dark, deep and strange metal slowly opened. The bathroom that was originally opposite was now only left with an antique oak door. Crack. Jerry, wearing a formal dress that an ordinary house elf would never touch, knelt on one knee and appeared on Ryan's right. "Master, do you have any instructions? Do you want to wake up Ms. Nagini and have sex with her?" Jerry said. "No, it's Nagini's hibernation time now. I just think this bathroom needs to be restored," Ryan said calmly. "This bathroom doesn't really need to be renovated, but it would feel a bit wrong if it was left alone." Ryan stretched out his right hand, and silver starlight appeared around him. Everything in the bathroom appeared in Ryan's mind, ripples emerging from the air when a stone breaks the calm surface of the water. At the same time, In the two Smith castles, opposite the elevator entrance on the underground first floor, the dazzling galaxy was flowing around the colorless ripples. Buzz! Behind the oak door, the same bathroom as before appeared in both Smith castles. Ryan opened the door. On the wall to his right, there was a painting in a gilded frame. It showed a mermaid with blonde hair and snow-white hair waving at him on the rocks beside the endless sea. With a click, the door closed. "Okay, Jerry, how much information have you collected about Moon City?" Ryan took a step forward, and the next second, they appeared in the study. "Master, the 1,400-acre Shelburne farm on the shore of Lake Champlain is very strange. The milk, fruits and vegetables it produced have disappeared inexplicably. When we traced them using magic and alchemy tools, we found that the milk, fruits and vegetables still existed, but they were beyond the distance specified by tracer number 134. Jerry said quickly. "Oh, tell me about its history." Ryan agreed with interest. "Even if this ranch does not belong to Moon City, it is probably part of an unknown wizard settlement like Atlantis. It is the former home of a Muggle called William Seward Webb, who was a well-known businessman in the Muggle world. This farm consists of 4 parts, a 24-room hotel, a non-profit education center, a cattle farm, and a vegetable garden," Jerry said finally. Chapter 371 Webber Boot. William Seward Webber. As Ryan murmured, at an angle invisible to the eyes, dots of starlight appeared on the surface of Ryan's body, and a large formation slowly emerged in his silver-white pupils, a magic formation composed of the Milky Way. Ryan's gaze was directed towards the third realm beyond the material and spiritual, which wizards call destiny. Under Ryan's sight, the river of destiny, containing the past and future of this world, turned into names. The name of William Seward Webb began to slowly emerge, and finally faded, leaving only Webb. A thread spread out from the river. Ryan looked closely and saw the name of the wizard. Unlike ordinary mortals, he shone with an eternal and transcendent brilliance. Webber, but surname like most surnames, Boot comes from an unknown shoemaker. Among one of the shoemaker's descendants, a wizard was born. The wizard later came to Ireland and settled there. And Webber is the descendant of this unknown wizard. He also has an older brother named Shaik. When he was young, his parents brought their family to the Plymouth colony in the New World for adventure, where they met James Stewart, a nomad, the name for non-magic people in the American wizarding world of forest to explore, but they were attacked by a hidden monster. Weber's parents were both killed, and he and his brother were seriously injured. However, a pucky named William and Isolde Sayre, who were foraging nearby, rescued them and took them to Isolde's hut. Later, Isolde brought back the unconscious James Stewart. The subsequent story is very familiar to wizards in the United States and even Slytherin House. Isolde Sayre and James Stewart, descendants of Slytherin, fell in love, adopted Webster and Chadwick, and established Ilvermorny School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Webber Bute returned to Ireland as an adult. Re-incubate in their hometown. Terry Booth is his descendant. But perhaps it was Webber Butt's Indian lover that made Terry's existence impossible to connect with Webber Butt. Because Terry looked exactly like an Indian. It's amazing. Could it be that the clue to Moon City has always been with me? Ryan couldn't help but exclaimed in amazement, and took a sip of the black tea handed to him by Jerry to calm his nerves. After observation and thinking, Ryan has confirmed one thing: the American businessman named William Seward Webb is a descendant of Webb Butt. But unlike the descendants of wizards who stayed in Ireland, they chose to use their ancestor's name as their surname, abandoning Boot, a prominent surname in the American wizarding world. Ryan closed his eyes. The magical power of the raging waves wrapped around him brain like a spider web. Unrealistic guesses wandered in his mind. Under the great power of the system pointing to the right direction, those guesses gradually became closer, and then, bang! A huge snake shadow emerged from the invisible ocean of thought, interrupting Ryan's thinking. Slytherin. Sayre. Ryan frowned. For Ryan, he could still continue to rely on his talent to think, but that mysterious magic blocked everything. If he really wanted to persevere, it would probably take him nearly a month to get the result. That Shelburne farm undoubtedly belongs to Bute and Thayer's descendants. Furthermore, these daily necessities will appear in a remote place like under the Atlantic Ocean. The United States was the first country to land on the moon. This place is far from human habitation, and the tracking magic developed by Ryan, combined with the tracker 134 he developed, cannot sense it. It is undoubtedly the moon. This can only be done by the descendants of Sayre and Isolde Sayre's adopted son, the Butts. Because in the American wizarding world, the attitude towards muggles is far more closed than that of the British wizarding world. Wizards can't even marry the no-mages they like. But the Sayers are different. Their ancestor Isolde Sayers' lover was a no-mage, and this no-mage, James Stewart, was also an excellent wand maker. The only no-mage known to be able to make a wand. There is no doubt that the Sayers know how to make such magical equipment by non-wizards. The technological development of the United States may also be under their leadership. Therefore, only Sayer and Butte could be the wizards who built Moon City. Other wizards in America, like conservative Indians, avoid all contact with no-mage society. The connection between Atlantis and Moon City is also easy to understand. Witchcraft and wizardry. But unfortunately, Terry probably doesn't know the existence of Moon City. Ryan realized this when he came to his senses. This branch of Butte might have been deliberately left in the UK by Weber Butte reclusive. If he or his family really knew about Yucheng, it would be more likely that he would drop out of school and be taken to Yucheng by his parents. However, this is not important. Ryan can easily reach Moon City through the Shelbourne farm. Any other clues? Ryan asked worriedly. After solving a goal that he had deliberately set for himself, Ryan wanted to see if there were any other wizard gatherings like Moon City. Master, this is the only one. All other clues have been ruled out by the tracking magic and alchemy tools you developed. After investigation, we found that the points where their physical bodies appeared are all in the known living areas of wizards, said Jerry. While at Hogwarts, Ron faced his most desperate moment ever. He never expected to encounter such a crisis. You are Ron. Let me touch it. Yes, he is quite strong. Tell me about Harry Potter. What kind of person is he? But a group of burly witches. When did I say I wanted to get married? Ron shed tears of pain. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 372: The Failed Journey to Egypt. Getting married in the 2nd grade. Upon hearing this, most people would think that this must be happening in a place like the backward areas of India. After all, if you calculate the grade, 2nd graders are only 7 years old. If you really want to get married, it will be a real punishment. But 2nd years in the wizarding world are different. They don't start school until they are 11 years old, and Ron had totally misheard. He was engaged in the wizarding world. Being engaged, 12 years old, and a pureblood, was a completely normal thing. Ron thought this was normal. But he never expected how Fred and George found this group of burly witches. Witches of this size are extremely rare at Hogwarts. After escaping from the Gryffindor common room with great difficulty, 2 red figures caught his attention. Go to hell. Ron rushed towards the figure with more messy hair, who should be Fred. He knew it must have been Fred's idea. However, when his fist touched the idea back of the figure's head, he felt a soft touch. Then, boom, shrimp karaoke. A wave of heat swept across Ron's cheeks. It's an explosion. Ron touched his cheek and found that he was unharmed. He tried to open his eyes, and a card was left at the center of the explosion. Dear Ron, you must be lonely. You are the only one who is still single among your good friends. We know that it is not because you are not good enough. Photo of Aunt Muriel under your pillow. After hard work, we found 30 contestants and persuaded them to sign up. Don't be moved, this is what we should do. Love you Fred and George, you bastards. Bastards then goblins. A shrill roar came from the corridor on the 8th floor. A wizard with a black and red afro and a dark face leaned against the wall. 20 minutes later, Ron washed his face and returned to the bedroom panting with his afro that he couldn't control. Ginny. What are you doing? Ron couldn't believe his eyes. Ah, it's so noisy. Ginny yawned and nudged Harry to indicate that someone was coming. Ron, what's wrong with you? Ginny perked up. You do not know, not. Fred and Georgette, where did they go? Ron looked at Ginny suspiciously. What kind of prank is this? Their new product. Wake up. Harry, look. Ginny pushed Harry's shoulder. What happened? Ron, what's that new hairstyle you got? Harry was startled and jumped off the bed subconsciously. Okay, let me tell you, Ron said with a humiliated look on his face as he recounted his experience in Gryffindor. Wait. You didn't find them. What about Percy? Ginny keenly sensed something was wrong. Percy. I didn't see it. They should be hiding in the dormitory. but you surely understand why I dare not go back to the Gryffindor common room on the 8th floor. Ron clenched his fists. Fred and the others are going too far, said Harry. Ron was about to nod, but Harry's next words, those ladies came here for a blind date, but, Harry frowned. Well, Fred and the others are really rude. Too, it's me, it's my fault, they pinched my butt several times, Harry. You are my friend, and you, Ginny, I am your brother. Your brother's innocence was almost lost. If I hadn't been in good health and strong enough to run away in time, maybe my first kiss would have been. Ron's face was full of indignation and he didn't dare to think any further. I'm Arthur Weasley's son, Harry Potter's friend, and Fred and George's brother. Only one person praised my strong figure. Ron's expression became even more gloomy. I think they may no longer be in Hogwarts. Just as Harry was still comforting that at least one person said that Ron had a good figure, Ginny suddenly said something incoherent. Them. Fred and George. In the Gryffindor common room? I don't dare go in. Ron scratched the back of his head in confusion. No, I mean Fred, George, and Percy. Them. Ginny touched her chin, thinking. What's wrong? Harry looked at Ginny curiously. Ron was also preparing to take a shower, put on Harry's invisibility cloak, and wait for the portrait of the fat lady on the 8th floor. If Fred and George were gone, then all the suffering he had just hardened would have been in vain. First, they weren't wearing Weasley sweaters. Fred and George always put them on first. And secondly, that was Percy. He had a ton of stuff on his back, and I asked, and Fred and George both said it was snow. They're going to use it to play a trick on you. But now thinking back, if it was snow, there would have been water stains on the ground. And it wouldn't be the two dummies either, the outline wouldn't be right. Then there's only one answer, they went back. Ginny said. Ron couldn't help but scream. The sound of firecrackers exploding came from his left pocket. Scabbers. Ron took out a fat rata letter. He was surprised to find one thing, the color of the letter had changed. No, but also its content. Dear Ron, Ginny and Harry. Ron, you should have noticed that we are no longer in Hogwarts. But there is one thing we are curious about. When did you find out? It would be interesting if you heard it from the fat lady late at night. There is one thing we want to tell you. That is, Percy and I are going to Egypt to see Bill. Mom and Dad actually thought about letting you go with us, but you don't have to thank us a blind date. Ginny, you have to accompany Harry again. Your favorite Fred and George, and your hated Percy. We were going to Egypt. Ron's face twisted. Chapter 373 To the Moon. You really want to travel? Then I have a better place. Ron really regretted hearing this, and what he regretted even more was that he didn't refuse at the first time. Otherwise, he wouldn't be like this, in a bucket of milk. Although he could still breathe in the milk, no, it would be more accurate to say that he was integrated into the milky liquid. He was like a ghost, a shadow, trapped in this barrel of milk that was a little too narrow for him. He cannot speak or see, and the only way he can sense the outside world is through his ears and touch. What's worse, he didn't know how long he would stay like this. Because the destination of their trip is the moon, a place that even great figures like Dumbledore and Voldemort cannot reach with magic alone. If it weren't for the gravity thing that Harry mentioned, it would take 2001 years for Nimbus 68 to reach this place. Will I starve to death? Ron touched his stomach. Ron, you won't starve to death. Harry's voice, which was almost unable to suppress his laughter, sounded in his heart. Yet, Ron, didn't you read the instructions? Leon said that if you have any questions, just read the instructions silently in your mind. Ginny's clear voice also sounded inexplicably in his heart. Ron subconsciously wanted to speak, but his tongue and upper and lower lip seemed to have merged into one. He only now realized that he didn't even need to breathe. The feeling he had when breathing before was just a habit, an illusion. Idiot. We can hear everything you think in your heart, except your own thoughts, those thoughts you want to convey to the outside world. That was Ginny. From her voice, Ron could imagine her look of disappointment. Think about the instructions quickly. Harry's helpless voice came, okay. Ron recited the instructions in his mind. Doubtfully descendant of Slytherin, and the Boots, the Draco would be proud if you were here. The Sayers and Boots inherited the non-wizard method of making this magical implement from the great Muggle wandmaker James Stewart. When the American wizarding world chose not to interact with Muggles, they chose to find a new place, the moon, and build it according to their own ideas. Ron eagerly squeezed out the information in his mind and browsed through it. Alvermorny School of Witchcraft and Wizardry were looking for like-minded people all over the world. They restored the dilapidated Atlantis and built a magnificent underwater city. Ron, are you okay? Harry asked, suddenly fine. Ron pulled himself out of the information stream with a lingering feeling. Ginny, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you talking? Ron couldn't help scratching the back of his head. Nothing. Ginny's inner voice echoed in Ron and Harry's hearts. However, Ron was very confused as to why he felt that Ginny was a little shy. Her tone was the same as when she greeted Harry when Harry first came to their house. Ron, I never thought we would have the chance to come to the moon. When Ryan told us, I thought I was dreaming. If I hadn't been to Atlantis with him, I would have thought he was talking crazy like you do. Harry began to change the subject. What? You've been to Atlantis? That underwater city? When was it? It was during your summer vacation. That's not right. If it was, Dobby would definitely know. Did you and Ryan know each other last semester? Atlantis contract. I can't tell others in any way before you know. Harry explained quickly. So you really have known Ryan for a long time. Ron misunderstood. Ginny, lying in the pile of vegetables nearby, was still recalling the images that had just flashed through Harry's mind. Her face flushed. No, it's not. Do you remember the first time I attended Roger's Quidditch training? At that time, I complained that he was just talking nonsense and you said he was unreliable. Harry asked tentatively. Points. That was the time. Wait, that time? You were pretending to be asleep at that time. That's not right. You and I were in the lounge at noon, and we were even being interviewed by other students together at that time. Ron was puzzled. Could it be possible that Harry could split himself into two? Let me think. At 10 o'clock, you were still in the bedroom, until 10. It seems that's when you disappeared. Excluding the time you spent in Atlantis, let's say 1 hour, you got there in about an hour. Ron was stunned. Now he knew how far Hogwarts in the Scottish Highlands was from the Bermuda Triangle in the southeast of the Florida Peninsula in North America. Well, at that time we used the staff of Poseidon inherited from the Ryan family, which could allow us to appear directly in another place with water. Harry lied with his eyes open. Where there's water. Ron couldn't help but think of his Aunt Muriel. When he was still young and ignorant, she was still charming, totally different from now, and like Dudley before. If he had the scepter at that time, then Ron's imagination ran wild. At this moment, a strange feeling came, as if there was a hook behind his navel hooking forward with irresistible momentum, and his feet left the ground and flew up. Portkey, said Ginny suddenly. When his uncle was still alive, he was a lawless guy like Fred and his friends. At that time, he secretly made a few keys to his house. Portkey. It seems that we in the UK are no worse than them. Portkeys are out of date. We now use the portal developed by Skywalker Alchemy Workshop. Ron couldn't help but feel proud. This is the delivery channel. Harry reminded from the side. Ron's smile froze. Chapter 374 Operation. In a place that satellites cannot observe and wizards subconsciously ignore, there are black metal plates hidden in the boundless sky. I saw a huge block made of an unknown metal appearing on the metal plates and then disappearing. I want to vomit. How long will it take? Ron said palely. He was very glad at this moment that the strange magic that Ryan cast on him made him equivalent to a ghost. If he were in his normal mode, he would have been vomiting and having diarrhea. It's described in the manual. We were teleported upwards via metal plates similar to port keys, and finally appeared in a hut specially used for storing supplies in a crater on the back of the moon, Harry recalled. I mean, how many pieces of metal there are? Ron frowned and covered his mouth with a hand. $100. Ginny guessed. There was no relevant information in the manual. After who knows how long the world was spinning, this voice was heard. I can stand up now. Ron stood up and was amazed to see his transparent hands and his body passing through the plastic barrel. Look behind you. Harry exclaimed. They were now in a transparent roundhouse. Behind them were grayish-white lunar rocks and craters. In addition, there is endless darkness, in which a blue planet shines. That's the Earth. Our world. Moon? So how could they? Looking at the scene in front of him, Ron couldn't help but lose confidence in Ryan's magic. He is different from Harry. In his perspective, Ryan is just a very handsome and mysterious friend. A friend who will subconsciously be forgotten by himself. You have to trust him. You know, He's always there for Luna, but I sometimes forget he exists. Quickly pointed to their left, which was closed by a door made of unknown red metal. Can we just go right through? Like a ghost, Ron said, tentatively reaching for the door. Hey. Ginny rushed forward and knocked Ron's hand aside. Boredom. Okay, my. Harry began to slowly talk about what he saw and heard in Atlantis. Let's study the magic on us, don't you think this is strange? This magic allows us to penetrate matter and become transparent, but at the same time it also allows us to stand on the ground, instead of floating like a real ghost. Harry, with a dry mouth, was ready to change the subject. He looked at the magnificent crater behind him while talking. What's so strange about this? Magic is what it is. You can do whatever you want. As long as you are familiar with the magic, you can make it work the way you want. Ron shrugged. This was a sentence he saw in the travel notes of an ancestor, and he thought it made sense. Wait, speaking of Gone with the Wind, I thought of something. Don't you find it strange? We are on the moon. What's even more strange isn't why Ryan is on Earth, so we can go back. And how did we get to that farm? Harry said, casually hugging Ginny. Farm? How do you know it's a farm? Ron asked curiously, sitting cross-legged on the ground. Look at these things. The milk is still warm, obviously freshly squeezed. And these vegetables, especially the Brussels sprouts, look how fresh they are. Harry grinned, and Ginny in his arms looked at him with admiration. It should be easy for us to get back. Ryan's instructions and his words didn't tell us how to get back. This time it will probably be just like your trip to Atlantis. In a blink of an eye, you'll be back to Hogwarts. Ron guessed. This time is different. Ryan didn't come here. He's probably on Earth now. Harry looked at the blue planet in the darkness and the others as coordinates. Ryan easily got the location of Moon City concealment like the portal that was previously made from Moon City. Soon as they arrived on the moon, Ryan appeared in the city. Such an operation, at such a long distance, no wizard could reach it in an instant, but Ryan is different. He can divide this moment into different times, so the amount of magic power he needs to expend in one moment does not have to be an astronomical figure. In addition, he has the recovery ability of an Ouroboros perpetual motion machine power almost in the next instant. If you add up all this time, it's about a month. When Harry and the others go back later, Ryan will take them back himself. However, when he returns, in order to prevent Harry and the others from noticing the passage of time, he will block their perception and temporarily share with them the magic of the Phoenix's immortality, and take it back when they return to Hogwarts. This is not being cautious. Harry and the others are not like Ryan, who do not need to eat and are not worn down by time. Harry may be an exception, as he and Riddle share immortality. This is necessary to maintain their activity and sanitation during this real month. Chapter 375, Ordinary Moon City. All this went back an hour ago, when Ryan was considering whether or not he should condescend to go to Moon City through the cargo channel. And just then, Harry thought about him in his mind. Perhaps it was Ron's mention of the trip to Egypt that reminded Harry of the only and most exciting journey in his life, to Atlantis. And this, of course, is inseparable from Ryan. The rest of the story is about asking Ron if he wants to travel, and Harry quickly agrees on Ron's behalf. Ryan takes them to the goods at Shelby Farm in the United States, and then casts some magic on Harry and the others to protect, hide, and convey information. Finally, Ryan arrived in Moon City through Harry and the others' coordinates. In fact, reaching the moon is not a difficult task for Ryan. Moon City was too well hidden. Even though Ryan used his mind to scan every inch of the moon, he still found nothing. Obviously, Moon City, like the real Smith Castle, is hidden in a foreign land, an independent space that overlaps with the real world. Ryan flipped through the magic book in his hand to pull his thoughts away from his memories. 100 Ways to Hide Yourself is the name of this book. Its author is Lewin Thayer, who was born in 1930. This records book the principles of Moon City's hidden magic. This made Ryan look surprised, because Ryan discovered that the principle of this magic was similar to the magic that the Smith family used to conceal themselves and the castle. The Smiths collected the magical power that generations of wizards had bestowed on the hidden part of the concept of the moon, and integrated this magic into their blood. As a result, the presence of each generation of Smith is extremely weak and is often ignored. Moon directly covers the entire city with this hidden magical power. In addition, the principle of the loyalty curse was combined to conceptualize Moon City and hide it in every resident of Moon City at the same time. They also adopted magic contracts, But compared with Atlantis's contract, their contract lacked the effect of making people give up negative emotions, because the founder here believes that people, even wizards, are made up of two faces. One is good and the other is evil. The positive brings order, the negative brings desire. Desire is the source of progress and the driving force that allows order to keep up with social development. Ryan looked out the window. Everything here was completely different from Atlantis. They have not evolved their own style of dressing. Judging from their attire alone, without looking at the surrounding buildings and domes built against the craters, it looks like an ordinary wizarding society. Planet's Moon City is nothing more than a miracle created by borrowing Muggle technology and adding a little magic. In terms of social system, life pattern, or other aspects, they are not much different from the magical society on Earth. The only difference is that the Muggles and Squibs here all know about the existence of wizards. Magic is not something that needs to be hidden here. Compared to the atmosphere of Atlantis, where everyone is studying magic, scientists are the highest goal of most wizards, Squibs and Muggles in Moon City. For them, magic is just a glue for scientific ideas, achieving miracles that are temporarily impossible to achieve scientific goals. Ryan suddenly felt a little bored. For him, this place was not as fun as Atlantis. O'clock, he would record the needed materials in specific quantities and send them to farms around the world. At about 11 o'clock, after the door key management department checked, maintained and repaired the door key, he received the message that everything was fine and then sent a message to the farm on Earth. He had to stay in the monitoring room until the supplies filled up the small houses on the side of the city, and then he would go to the warehouse he was responsible for. The standard magic item can be picked up with one hand and can automatically absorb the supplies in the entire warehouse and then transfer the supplies to the department responsible for distributing the supplies. He didn't get off work until 3 p.m. By this calculation, excluding the 2 hours he took for meals and nap, he actually worked for 3 hours. It's unbelievable that there is someone in this world who spends 3 whole hours working like him himself. How could he become a great scientist with such hard work? Coupled with the wear and tear on his mind from the boring work and the comments from others that he was crazy, Ned always felt that the world was against him. Today, he has to go to the warehouse again to start his boring work. Ned placed his right hand on a bulge next to the red metal door, and the sound of Kangsy Kangsy was heard, and the door opened. "Harry, the door is open." Ron's voice ranges in Harry's mind as he has already gotten out of boredom. Harry looked towards the door, and it split into 2 halves with a strange sound. The floor and ceiling seemed to be alive, slowly eating up the upper and lower parts of the metal door. Then, a figure appeared. But his appearance disappointed Harry. The man in front of him was wearing an ordinary black wizard robe, and he didn't hold a wand in his hand, but something like a flashlight. "Wizards, look! Harry!" Ron almost jumped up excitedly. Buckets of milk, piles of vegetables, and several other boxes of unknown things shrank one by one under the light of the cylindrical object in the wizard's hand and were absorbed into the expensive cylinder. "Don't be surprised yet." Harry winked, moving Ron to follow. At this moment, he and Ginny had already walked out of the dome house. Uh-oh. Ron followed quietly behind. After he confirmed that the strange in front of him wizard couldn't see him, he made a face at the strange wizard. "This is the city on the moon." Ginny couldn't help rubbing her eyes. Strangely enough, though, Harry wasn't surprised at all. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.